The corpse on the autopsy slab has no bones left to raise. Its skeleton has already been harvested by a licensed corpse mage, its blood drained for alchemical storage, and every useful organ tagged for the city's resurrection clinics. Yet Corven Hale places 2 fingers against the dead man's forehead like there is still something worth stealing. See, 3 years ago, Corven awakens the only Necromancer class in recorded history that cannot animate a single corpse. No skeletons. No zombies. No ghost soldiers. Nothing that the Ministry of Gates considers remotely useful. His class summons memories. And apparently, memories do not bite monsters. The interface behind his eyes stirs the moment his skin touches the corpse. A faint readout forms across his vision, deceased identity confirmed, memory integrity critically degraded, accessible fragment duration, 11 seconds. Corven closes his eyes. The morgue disappears. Rain slams against his face. A sword enters the dead man's stomach. Not Corven's stomach, the corpse's. For 11 brutal seconds, our necromancer experiences the final memory exactly as the dead man lived it. He feels the weight of wet leather. He hears boots scraping across stone. He sees the attacker's wrist twist before the blade enters. Then the memory snaps apart. Corven opens his eyes. Nothing remains except the cold morgue and the irritating buzz of fluorescent mana lamps. A clerk standing behind him checks a pocket chronometer. Anything useful? Corven removes his fingers from the corpse. Left-handed killer, short blade, military grip. The clerk pauses. That was not the answer he expected. Corven gestures toward the dead man's hand. There is black wax beneath his thumbnail. He scratched the attacker before dying. The clerk leans closer. Sure enough, a tiny smear sits beneath the nail. Black wax. Stamped correspondence, wax, military grade. The clerk suddenly looks a lot less bored. For the city investigators, this is valuable. For Corven's combat license, it means absolutely nothing. That is the ridiculous problem with his class. Every legitimate necromancer in the Dominion of Vale can turn death into manpower. Bone shepherds reinforce fallen skeletons with iron marrow. Grave commanders raise entire platoons from battlefield soil. Soulbinders anchor dead beasts inside armored shells. Corven, he can watch someone lose an argument 20 years ago. Talk about a legendary career path. His official classification is Memory Necromancer, Provisional Utility Grade. Unofficially, people call him the Undertaker Librarian. Some mean it as a joke. Most do not bother hiding the insult. Corven collects his gloves and walks out of the morgue without reacting. The clerk calls after him. The ministry denied your field application again. That gets half a step of hesitation. Only half. Reason? Same as last time. The clerk almost looks embarrassed. Non-combat necromancers cannot enter active gates without sponsorship. Corven continues walking. 3 years of examinations. 3 years of perfect written scores. 3 years of watching people with ordinary corpse classes receive raid licenses because they can make dead things move. Meanwhile, the only man alive capable of interrogating death itself gets assigned to basement morgues. He does not hate the system. Hating systems is inefficient. Understanding them works better. And Corven understands this one perfectly. Combat licenses require combat evidence. Combat evidence requires gate access. Gate access requires a combat license. A beautifully stupid circle. So naturally, our guy has been looking for a door that does not require permission. He finds one before midnight. The summons arrives as a paper envelope rather than a system message. That alone makes it suspicious. The seal belongs to St. Ordal's ossuary, the oldest royal crypt beneath the capital. Inside sits a single sentence. A dead archivist has been discovered in the restricted catacombs. Memory specialist requested. No ministry escort. No registry stamp. Double payment. Corven reads it once. Then again, he turns the envelope over. Pressed into the black wax is a symbol almost erased by someone's thumb, a crown divided vertically through the center. He has never seen it before, but something about the mark bothers him. Not fear. Recognition without context, like remembering the shape of a word without knowing its meaning. Corven pockets the envelope. 20 minutes later, he is descending beneath St. Ordal's. The ossuary is older than the capital built above it. Its walls are made from pale stone that absorbs sound instead of reflecting it. Names of dead kings cover the corridor in narrow silver script. Some are heroes, some are tyrants. Most are both. In the Dominion, powerful dead bodies never remain intact for long. Bones become relics. Blood becomes catalysts. Weapons become inheritance artifacts. Even teeth from legendary warriors sell for fortunes. But memories? Nobody has ever found a way to preserve those. At least, nobody except Corven. A thin man in a gray curator's coat waits beside the final iron gate. Meet Dane Rook, senior mortuary arcanist of St. Ordal's and a man who looks far too calm beside a freshly murdered employee. His corpse magic is famous in certain circles. Not because it is especially powerful, because it is precise. Dane can remove and animate individual bones without disturbing surrounding tissue, useful in surgery, terrifying in interrogation. Tonight, he smiles like Corven has arrived exactly when expected. The body is inside. Corven looks past him. The gate stands open. Restricted catacombs normally require 3 signatures. Dane's smile remains. Tonight only requires 1. Interesting. Corven enters anyway. The dead archivist lies beside a shattered display case. Male. Approximately 60. No visible wounds, no blood. His fingers are curled against his chest. Behind him, an empty pedestal bears an engraved title, the Crown of Oryx Val. Corven stops. That name matters. Every child in the Dominion knows it. Oryx Val, the first crown, the king who unifies 7 warring states without losing a single capital. The sorcerer who defeats the Ash Choir by turning their own battlefield ritual against them. The commander credited with developing more than 40 military doctrines still taught in modern war colleges, and, according to historical records, the only ruler ever forbidden from receiving resurrection rites after death. His body vanished after the succession wars. Only his crown remained. Until tonight. Corven looks at the empty case. Someone stole it. Dane closes the iron gate behind them. The lock turns. No. Corven glances back. Dane's expression finally changes. The polite curator disappears. Something colder replaces him. Someone found it. A click comes from beneath Corven's boots. He moves instantly. Too late. Thin ivory spikes erupt from the floor, not bones buried in the crypt. Bones extracted from the walls. Human remains have been mixed into the masonry for centuries. Dane has just weaponized the entire room. Corven twists sideways. One spike slices across his ribs. Another punches through his coat. A third nearly takes his throat. Our guy hits the floor hard and rolls behind a stone pedestal. Dane raises 2 fingers. The chamber begins to crack. Tiny fragments of ancient skeletons crawl from between the stones. Nothing personal, Dane says. That phrase usually means the opposite. Dane almost laughs. Then the floor explodes. Bone shards tear through the pedestal. Corven dives. One catches his shoulder. Pain flashes white. His combat ability is exactly what the ministry says it is. Almost non-existent. No summoned shield. No undead guard. No skeletal armor. Just a man with excellent grades getting murdered in a basement. Dane advances slowly. The old archivist discovered something beneath the crown. Corven glances at the corpse. There it is. The reason he was invited. Not to investigate. To extract information. Dane needs a memory necromancer. Afterward, he needs 1 fewer witness. Corven slides toward the archivist's body while another wave of bone needles erupts from the wall. He takes one through the sleeve. Another cuts his cheek. He reaches the corpse. 2 fingers touch cold skin. A message burns across his mind. Memory extraction available. Terminal sequence heavily fragmented. Corven activates it. The catacomb vanishes. The dead archivist is alive again. His hands shake as he lifts Oryx Val's crown from the display case. Black metal, no jewels, no royal insignia, just dozens of microscopic characters carved along the inner rim. The archivist turns it beneath a lantern. His breathing stops. The carvings are not decorative. They are names. Thousands of them. No, not names. Memory signatures. The archivist whispers something. Corven cannot hear it clearly. Then the man presses his thumb against a hidden needle inside the crown. Blood touches metal. The entire chamber lights up. For one impossible instant, someone appears in front of him. A tall man in battered ceremonial armor, not a ghost. Not a spirit. A memory. Oryx Val. The ancient king looks directly at the archivist, then directly through him. The memory ends. Corven returns to his body as a bone spike punches through the corpse beside his hand. He jerks away. Dane notices the change in his face. What did he see? Corven wipes blood from his cheek. The crown, obviously. Dane flicks his wrist. A rib bone whips across the chamber like a hooked blade. Corven ducks. It tears through his collar. Where is it? Corven looks at the shattered case. Then at the dead archivist's curled hand. His fingers were not clutching his chest. They were hiding something. Corven dives beside the body. Dane reacts. Too slow. Our necromancer pries open the dead man's fist. A black metal fragment sits in the palm. Not the crown. A broken piece of its inner ring. The moment Corven touches it, his class goes completely silent. That is new. No readout. No duration estimate. No integrity warning. Nothing. Then the entire system shudders. A quiet chime sounds behind his eyes. Unknown memory architecture detected. External mnemonic structure exceeds standard deceased imprint parameters. Corven freezes for less than a second. Dane misreads it as fear. Bad mistake. The fragment becomes warm. And suddenly, the dead are everywhere, not physically, inside the memory space. A battlefield stretches beneath a red sky. Thousands of soldiers move across hills like pieces on a board. Oryx Vol stands at the center, older than the statues, tired, covered in blood, completely calm. He turns. This time the ancient king does not look through Corven. He looks at him. The memory necromancer feels something impossible happen. The summoned memory notices the summoner. Oryx raises one hand. Hundreds of battle maps ignite around them. Sword forms, spell diagrams, fortification designs, poison formulas, counter rituals, forbidden geometric magic, assassination protocols, languages no modern scholar can read, every campaign, every defeat, every adjustment, every victory. Not information about Oryx Vol's actual remembered mastery. The system finally speaks up. Complete mnemonic inheritance detected. Absorption is possible. Corven's pulse accelerates. There is a warning immediately afterward. Physical vessel incompatible with full execution. Mana capacity insufficient. Neurological overload probable. Permanent memory contamination risk severe. Our necromancer stares at the impossible arsenal surrounding him. Then he does what he always does when reality changes. He recalculates. He cannot use everything. Fine. He does not need everything. Not yet. He only needs enough to survive the next 30 seconds. Corven accepts. The battlefield collapses into him. It is not pleasant. 1,000 military formations slam through his skull. Spell structures carve themselves into his instincts. His hands remember weapons they have never touched. His eyes learn distances he has never measured. His breathing changes. His posture changes. Even the way his feet press against the floor becomes slightly different. Outside the memory space, less than a second passes. Dane launches another storm of bones. Corven opens his eyes. He sees the attack once, and somehow, our guy already knows exactly where every shard will land. Left shoulder, throat, femoral artery, kidney. 2 feints, 1 delayed strike from behind. Oryx Vol has seen this attack pattern before. Not from Dane, from a battlefield assassin who died more than 6 centuries ago. Corven takes 1 step. Only 1, every bone misses. Dane's face changes. The smile vanishes. Corven looks down at his own hand. Mana gathers around 2 fingers in a pattern no modern necromancer recognizes. Not corpse magic, not exactly. Oryx called it funeral script, a forbidden wartime art designed to command the residual intent left behind when warriors die violently. Corven cannot perform the full technique. His mana reserves would collapse instantly, so he uses the smallest possible version. 1 symbol, 1 command. The broken bones scattered across the chamber stop moving. Dane stares. That's impossible. Corven studies him with new eyes. No. He turns his wrist. The bones reverse direction. It's obsolete. Every shard Dane summoned suddenly points back at its owner. The mortuary arcanist staggers. For the first time tonight, the room goes completely quiet. Corven could attack. He does not. Oryx Vol's memories include thousands of methods for killing a man standing at this distance. They also include something more useful. Interrogation strategy. Corven lowers his hand. The bones fall. Dane exhales. Relief. Exactly as predicted. Then Corven steps forward and touches the dead archivist again. Dane's pupils tighten. Our necromancer is no longer watching the corpse's death. He is searching backward, past the crown, past the hidden needle, past the moment the archivist entered the chamber. Memory fragments flicker. A conversation. Dane's voice. Another voice replying from behind a silver mask. A table covered in maps. And on the masked stranger's glove sits the same divided crown symbol stamped into Corven's invitation. There it is again. The mark that somehow feels familiar, except now Oryx Vol's inherited memories react to it. Not with recognition, with hostility. A single ancient phrase surfaces inside Corven's mind. The severed throne. He files the name away. No panic. No dramatic realization. Just a new piece on the board. Dane notices his silence. What did the archivist remember? Corven rises. His shoulder is bleeding. His coat is ruined. His combat license is still technically non-existent. But none of those things feel particularly important anymore. He looks toward the thousands of names carved into the broken crown fragment. Oryx Vol is only one of them. Generals. Archmage. Saint. Assassin. Monster hunters. Heroes erased from modern history. Every signature is a dead life. Every dead life is a memory. And memories are the only undead Corven Hale has ever been able to summon. For 3 years, the world assumes that makes him useless. Tonight, that assumption dies first. Corven closes his fingers around the fragment, locks Dane inside the catacomb with the same mechanism the curator used on him, and walks toward the deeper royal vaults. Not to find corpses, to find names. The first thing Corvin learns about possessing the memories of history's greatest king is that knowledge does not care whether the human brain carrying it can survive. By sunrise, our necromancer is vomiting blood into a crypt basin, not exactly the glorious beginning legends usually advertise. He grips the stone edge while foreign memories tear across his mind in violent flashes. A cavalry charge through burning wheat. A 13-year siege reduced to 4 days through poisoned groundwater. A duel against a lightning sorcerer whose name disappeared from every modern archive. A woman wearing white armor. A child screaming inside a palace corridor. Then nothing. Corvin forces his breathing into a rhythm that does not belong to him. 4 counts inward, 2 held, 6 released. Oryx Val's recovery method. His pulse slows almost immediately. Useful. Terrifyingly useful. The broken crown fragment rests on the table beside him. For the past several hours, Corvin has been testing one simple question. How much of a dead person can he actually take? The answer is apparently far more complicated than his class description suggests. Normal memories behave like scenes. Corvin touches a corpse. His ability opens a fragment. He experiences whatever survives. Then the memory fades. Oryx is different. The ancient king is not a scene. He is an archive. And that distinction changes everything. Corvin places 2 fingers against the black fragment again. The inner world opens. No battlefield this time. A vast circular chamber stretches around him beneath a ceiling that does not exist. Thousands of doors line the walls. Some are made of iron, some stone, some crystal. Most are sealed. At the center stands Oryx Val, or at least the mnemonic construct wearing his appearance. The king no longer has blood across his armor. His sword is gone. His expression remains annoyingly severe. Corvin studies him. Oryx studies back. That alone should not be possible. Memories do not observe. They replay. Yet this one tracks Corvin's movement with perfect precision. Our guy walks left. Oryx's eyes follow. He walks right. Same result. Corvin stops. You can understand me. No response. Fine. He points toward one of the doors. Oryx looks at it. Then back at Corvin. Still nothing. Not a conversational companion. Not yet. But definitely not a recording. Corvin approaches the nearest unlocked door. A mark appears across its surface. Campaign, red fallow. Completion integrity, 92%. Compatible recollection categories. Battlefield awareness, formation reading, low-order counterspell architecture. Physical techniques restricted by vessel limitations. Mana techniques restricted by current capacity. Corvin's eyes narrow. There it is. The actual machine beneath the miracle. He has not absorbed Oryx's strength. He has absorbed access. The memories contain skills, but his body still needs to reproduce them. Knowing how a legendary swordsman cuts through steel does not magically give Corvin the muscles required to do it. Knowing the construction of an extinct spell does not provide the mana necessary to cast it. Knowledge is not power, not automatically. But knowledge tells him exactly how to build power. That may be worse for everyone else. Corvin opens the door. The world changes. A battlefield spreads beneath gray rain. A younger Oryx stands on a ridge while thousands of soldiers collapse below. The enemy army outnumbers his forces nearly 6-1. And the king is smiling. Corvin watches the memory, not the battle. The details. Flags, mud depth, wind, cavalry spacing, supply wagons, bird movement. Every apparently useless observation clicks into a larger structure. Oryx does not defeat the larger army through overwhelming magic. He notices that enemy wagons are distributing lamp oil instead of food. He predicts an overnight assault. He abandons the visible camp, then floods the low ground where the attackers must gather. Simple, brutal, efficient. The memory shifts. Now Oryx is teaching officers how to read armies through what they consume. Then how to identify spellcasters through bootwear. Then how to estimate hidden troop strength from latrine placement. Corvin exits the memory after less than 10 minutes. His nose is bleeding again. But this time, he is smiling. He walks back toward the locked iron gate where Dane Rook has spent the entire night discovering that bone magic is remarkably ineffective against a door with no exposed skeletons. Dane sits against the wall. His wrists are bound using cloth ripped from his own curator uniform. Corvin deliberately avoids bone restraints. No reason to hand a bone extractor ammunition. You're still here, Dane says. Corvin crouches. You sound disappointed. You cannot leave with that fragment. Why? Diane says nothing. Our necromancer waits. Silence works differently when the person asking questions already knows pieces of the answer. Corvin places the original invitation on the floor. The broken crown symbol faces upward. Dane looks at it for less than a second. Enough. Corvin remembers Oryx interrogating captured officers. Not torture. Pattern disruption. Ask about something harmless. Change subject. Return to the dangerous point without warning. Watch the body answer before the mouth does. What does St. Ordals pay you? Dane frowns. What? Salary. You've lost your mind. Approximately? Dane stares. Corven continues. 30 silver crowns monthly? Nothing. 40? Dane's left thumb presses against his palm. A stress response. Money matters. Interesting. Corven shifts. How much did the severed throne offer? Dane stops breathing, only for an instant. There. Confirmation. Corven stands. Good. Dane's face hardens. That proves nothing. It proves the name matters. You don't know what it means. Correct. That answer throws him harder than fake confidence would. Corven does not pretend to know more than he does. That makes lies much harder to construct around him. He places the crown fragment inside a leather pouch. Dane's eyes follow it, not greed. Fear. Another useful distinction. Whoever hired you wanted the crown, Corven says. But you needed the archivist's memory because something went wrong. Dane remains silent. The crown was opened. Still nothing. The archivist activated it before you could. Dane's jaw tightens. Good. Corven keeps going. He saw Oryx. A tiny twitch. And your employers did not expect that. Diane looks away. Our necromancer has enough. He does not need a confession. He needs behavior. Corven pulls the iron gate open. Dane actually looks confused. You're letting me go? No. Corven steps aside. 3 armored ossuary wardens wait beyond the gate. Dane's expression collapses. Corven sent for them almost an hour ago using the dead archivist's registry seal. Not because he trusts St. Ordals, because Dane believes he does not. That difference matters. The curator struggles as the wardens drag him away. You have no idea what you touched. Corven watches without expression. Probably true. You think one dead king makes you powerful? The wardens pull harder. Dane twists around. They buried him for a reason. That gets Corven's attention. Not enough to show. The curator disappears around the corridor. And just like that, our guy has his second clue. The first is the divided crown. The second is the word buried. Not killed, not defeated, buried. Specific language. Corven files it beside everything else. Then he lies. Not verbally, with paperwork. By noon, the official St. Ordell report states that the crown fragment was destroyed during Dane's attack. The dead archivist's terminal memory is described as incoherent. The severed throne is not mentioned. Oryx Vol is not mentioned. Most importantly, Corven records his own ability as unchanged. Memory Necromancer, utility grade. No combat applications observed. The lie is deliberately unimpressive. That makes it believable. Oryx's memories approve. Corven knows this because something strange happens when he finishes the report. The crown fragment warms. A sensation passes behind his eyes. Not words. Recognition. He enters the mnemonic chamber again. Oryx stands beside the red fallow door. This time, one more door is open. A smaller one. Woodland Rebellion. Logistical deception. Corven looks at the ancient king. You like that? Oryx turns away. Apparently even mnemonic constructs can be rude. Still, the meaning is obvious. Correct application unlocks deeper memories. Interesting. Corven begins testing immediately. He rents a forgotten training room beneath a merchant district bathhouse. Cheap, private. Structurally reinforced because it used to belong to smugglers. Perfect. He lays 20 iron coins across the floor at uneven distances. Then he closes his eyes. Oryx's battlefield awareness activates. Not magic, not exactly. It is remembered attention. Corven listens. Water running through pipes, boots outside. A carriage passing above. The faint scrape of a rat near the wall. His mind tries to organize everything simultaneously. Pain explodes behind his temple. He drops the technique. 3 seconds. Terrible. Again. 5 seconds. Again. 7. By the 13th attempt, Corven can walk across the room without looking down and avoid every coin. By the 20th, he can tell which coin Dane's confiscated bone needle lands beside after Corven throws it behind himself. By the 30th, blood runs from his nose onto his shirt. He stops. That part matters too. Oryx's memory contains a principle repeated through nearly every campaign. A weapon destroyed through overuse is not a weapon. It is delayed suicide. Corven needs limits, so he begins measuring them. He buys cheap corpses, not illegally, mostly. The city disposes of unidentified gate casualties every 7 days. Memory specialists can purchase research access for almost nothing because nobody wants fragmented death impressions. Corven suddenly wants all of them. The first corpse belonged to a carpenter. Our necromancer extracts 20 years of practical joinery through 6 usable memory clusters. The knowledge sticks. But only conceptually. His hands still produce an embarrassingly crooked wooden joint. Good. Memory does not equal muscle adaptation. The second corpse belonged to a street magician. 3 card tricks become immediately usable because the physical movements are simple. The third belonged to a retired gate scout. Now things get interesting. Corven summons a memory of the man crossing a collapsed bridge while tracking a burrowing beast. The scout's spatial judgment integrates cleanly. Corven walks onto the training floor afterward and suddenly notices structural weaknesses he ignored yesterday. Cracks, load-bearing points, escape lines, potential ambush positions. Some skills require muscles, some require mana, some only require ways of seeing. Those are the dangerous ones. Corven starts categorizing. Physical memory, arcane memory, procedural memory, strategic memory, sensory memory, emotional residue. He writes each category into a plain notebook instead of storing it magically. Digital records can be searched. System logs can sometimes be audited. Paper burns. That is Oryx again. The king's paranoia is becoming extremely practical. But Corven discovers something else by accident. The fourth corpse refuses him. Not literally. The dead woman has memories available. Corven summons one. A kitchen. Steam. An argument. Then the scene collapses instantly. The crown fragment reacts. One of the sealed doors in Oryx's chamber flickers. Corven tries again. Same result. He checks the corpse. No necromantic damage. No memory decay. Nothing obvious. Then he notices a tiny tattoo behind the woman's ear. A divided crown. His entire posture changes. The severed throne. Corven does not extract again. He studies the body. No wounds. No identification. Her fingertips have been chemically burned to remove prints. A silver thread is sewn beneath the skin of her wrist. Inside it sits a sliver of black crystal. Corven cuts it out. The moment the crystal touches the crown fragment, both vibrate. Oryx's mnemonic chamber tears open without permission. That has never happened. Corven appears inside. The ancient king is no longer standing still. He is facing one of the sealed doors, a door Corven has never approached. Black iron. No campaign title. No compatibility readout. Only the same divided crown symbol. Oryx raises one hand. For the first time, the memory speaks. One word. Lock. Corven snaps back into the training room. The black crystal cracks in his hand. Every mana lamp goes dark. Our necromancer does not move for several seconds. Not because he is frightened. Because the rules just changed. Oryx can communicate. Barely. And something connected to the severed throne exists inside the king's own memory archive. That makes the organization much older than Dane, possibly older than the Dominion. Corven wraps the crystal in lead cloth and stores it separately. He does not touch it again. Not yet. That restraint unlocks another change. Later that evening, when Corven enters the memory chamber voluntarily, Oryx is no longer standing beside the doors. He is seated at a stone table. A map rests between them, blank. Corven approaches. The king taps the surface once. Lines appear. Not ancient terrain. Modern streets. Corven recognizes the capital immediately. Then Oryx marks 3 places. St. Ordel's ossuary, the ministry licensing hall, and Corven's apartment. Our guy stares at the third mark. Oryx taps it again. Warning. That is significantly less subtle. Corven leaves the memory chamber. He returns home by a different route, not the shortest one, Oryx's route. Through a fish market, across a laundry bridge, down an alley with 4 reflective shop windows. Corven checks each reflection without turning his head. A man in a brown coat appears twice, then disappears. A woman carrying flowers appears 3 streets later. Same walking rhythm, different follower. Professional surveillance. Corven keeps moving. He buys bread. Stops beside a street musician. Lets a tram pass. The woman continues. Good, now he knows. He does not confront her. That would waste the advantage. Instead, Corven begins constructing his first real trap. He returns to the morgue assignment office. Complains loudly about his damaged coat. Requests reimbursement. Argues about unpaid hours. Acts exactly like a frustrated low-tier worker whose biggest problem is bureaucracy. Then he submits a new research request. Not for kings, not generals, not heroes. For criminals. Specifically, deceased burglars and counterfeiters. The clerk gives him a strange look. Why? Occupational memory study. That sounds boring enough to survive scrutiny. Permission is approved within the hour. Perfect. Over the next 4 days, Corven visits 6 bodies. A lockbreaker teaches him pressure listening. A document forger teaches him ink aging. A smuggler teaches him hidden compartment construction. A retired stage actor gives him something even better, controlled body language. None of these people are powerful. Together, they are absurdly useful. This is the real shape of Corven's necromancy. Ordinary necromancers need strong corpses. He needs relevant dead people. A legendary swordsman might help in battle. A dead accountant might help destroy an empire. The implications become ridiculous very quickly. Corven sets the trap in his apartment. A false notebook goes inside the floorboard. The stage actor's memory helps him leave exactly the right amount of nervous hesitation whenever he walks near that section while being watched through the opposite building. The burglar's memory helps him make the hiding place detectable to a skilled searcher. The forger's memory creates believable research notes. Inside them, Corven invents a theory. The Oryx crown fragment supposedly transferred only one incomplete combat memory, nothing else. He describes the technique as funeral script. He deliberately records an incorrect limitation. Funeral script allegedly requires physical contact with exposed human remains, a convincing weakness. Because everyone knows necromancers rely on corpses, everyone except Corven. Then he adds one final page. A fabricated destination. According to the notes, Corven believes the remaining crown was transported to the abandoned royal crematorium beneath East Vale. There is no crown there. There is something better. A ministry evidence vault. Restricted, monitored. Anyone searching for the crown will need to reveal resources to get inside. Our necromancer places the notebook beneath the floor, then leaves his apartment. He does not lock the window. That would be too obvious. He uses a weak latch, a burglar's latch. One designed to show exactly how it was opened. By midnight, someone enters. Corven is not there. He is 2 buildings away, sitting inside an empty textile warehouse. Eyes closed. A dead scout's memory guides his attention. Footsteps, window pressure, roof vibration. Oryx's strategic awareness organizes the information. 1 intruder, light build. No armored boots, approximately 4 minutes inside. Then departure. Corven waits another hour before returning. Nothing looks disturbed. Excellent work. He kneels beside the window. 1 microscopic scratch sits beside the latch. Professional tool. The floorboard is replaced almost perfectly. Almost. The fake notebook is gone. Corven pours tea. His hands are steady. Across the mnemonic link, Oryx appears briefly behind his eyes. Not the whole chamber, just the king's silhouette. Oryx places 1 piece onto an invisible board. Corven understands. Opening move. The next morning, a message arrives from the ministry. His 7th combat license application has been denied. Again, Corven actually laughs. Perfect timing. He folds the denial notice and places it inside his coat. Let the severed throne see it. Let them see an underqualified utility necromancer desperate for relevance. Let them believe he accidentally found one ancient technique and is now chasing the rest. The weaker they think he is, the more confidently they will move. But before Corven can leave the building, the morgue clerk calls him back. There's another body. Corven stops. Another murder? No. The clerk looks uncomfortable. This one asked for you before he died. That changes everything. The corpse lies inside private cold storage. Young man, maybe 25. Gate burns across both arms. No identification. No divided crown tattoo. Nothing connecting him to Dane, except for what sits clenched between his teeth. A strip of black metal. Corven removes it carefully. Different from Oryx's crown. Thinner. Engraved. 3 words. Remember the nameless. The crown fragment beneath Corven's coat turns ice cold. He touches the corpse. Memory access opens instantly. No fragmentation. No terminal scene. Just one deliberately preserved memory. A room with no windows. 7 people seated around a circular table, all wearing silver masks. One stands. The speaker places a drawing of Corven Hale on the table, then another image beside it. Oryx Vol. The memory zooms toward the wall behind them. Hundreds of portraits hang there. Warriors, mages, kings, priests, hunters, people Corven does not recognize. Every portrait bears a line through the eyes. Except one. Oryx. The speaker says only 6 words. The failed vessel has opened again. The memory ends. Corven's hand remains on the corpse. Failed vessel. Not archive. Not relic. Vessel. A new term. A dangerous one. And clearly something he was never supposed to hear. The dead messenger must have known that. Which means someone inside the severed throne wants Corven to know more. Or wants him to think they do. Either way, the board just gains another player. Corven removes his hand. He does not tell the clerk what he saw. Instead, he signs the ordinary extraction form, files the body under inconclusive terminal memory, then burns the black metal strip inside a furnace. Except he does not burn all of it. The smuggler's memory helps him split the strip along an invisible seam first. One half goes into the fire. The other goes beneath the lining of his boot. Oryx's silhouette appears again for less than a heartbeat. This time, the ancient king does not place a piece onto the board. He removes one. Corven understands that too. Some information is more valuable when everyone believes it is gone. Our necromancer leaves the morgue carrying nothing visible. Behind him, the surveillance woman from the flower route enters the building 30 seconds later. Ahead of him, the Ministry Evidence Vault receives an anonymous request for maps of the abandoned royal crematorium. And somewhere inside the severed throne, somebody is about to spend a great deal of money chasing a crown that is not there. Corven adjusts his coat and continues walking. He still cannot summon a skeleton. He still cannot raise a zombie. His combat license is still denied, but inside his head, a king is learning how to speak. Inside his notebook, 6 dead criminals have already become weapons. And beneath the city, an enemy that has survived for centuries has just accepted his first lie as truth. The Ministry Evidence Vault beneath East Vale has survived 2 civil wars, 3 succession purges, and 1 dragon attack. It lasts 11 minutes against the severed throne. Corven Hale knows this because he is standing across the district when the first explosion hits. Blue fire punches through the crematorium roof. Stone fragments rise into the night. A shockwave tears windows from nearby buildings. And somewhere beneath the smoke, several very expensive people have just discovered that the ancient royal crown they came to steal does not exist. Corven watches from the upper floor of an abandoned bellmaker's workshop. No armor, no weapon, no combat license, just a dark coat and Oryx Vol living behind his eyes, exactly where a supposedly useless necromancer belongs. The false notebook has done its job. For 4 days, the severed throne follows the trail Corven constructed. They bribe an archive clerk, intercept ministry transportation schedules, forge excavation permits, deploy an extraction team beneath East Vale. Every action leaves information behind: names, methods, resources, connections. And Corven has been collecting all of it without touching a single corpse. That part matters. Oryx taught wars in terms of logistics. The dead criminals taught Corven how professionals lie. Together, those memories turned surveillance into something dangerously close to necromancy. He does not need his enemies dead yet. Their habits are already talking. Another explosion shakes the district. Corven checks the cheap pocket watch in his palm. 11 minutes. Too fast. His expression changes slightly. The ministry response should have arrived after 6. That calculation came from 3 years of public emergency logs and 2 memories extracted from retired gate scouts. Instead, there are still no response sirens, no wardens, no barrier teams. Nothing. The timeline is wrong. Not historically wrong. Operationally wrong. Someone inside the ministry has delayed the response. That means the severed throne does not merely infiltrate mortuaries. They have access higher up. Corven closes the watch. Plan updated. He had intended to observe the surviving attackers after their retreat. Now he needs one alive before they escape. Oryx appears briefly within his inner vision. The ancient king stands beside the blank stone table. 3 pieces sit on its surface. 1 white, 2 black. Oryx removes the white piece. Ministry support compromised. Corven nods once. Agreed. The king's image vanishes. No surprise, no outrage, just recalculation. That is the difference between having knowledge and worshipping it. Knowledge becomes outdated. Useful people adapt. Corven leaves the workshop. The streets around East Vale are already emptying. Civilians run away from the crematorium. Shop owners slam iron shutters. Mana lamps flicker beneath the pressure of whatever spell is burning underground. Corven walks toward it. Terrible survival instinct, excellent information strategy. By the time he reaches the outer courtyard, the first enemy emerges. A man wearing a silver half-mask climbs through a shattered vault entrance. His left arm is covered in black geometric markings. His right hand holds a narrow case. No crown, probably stolen evidence. 2 more masked figures follow him, then a 4th. Corven counts their steps. Formation spacing, no wasted movement, professional. The lead man notices him. For 1 second, nobody speaks. Corven looks exactly like what his records say he is. A low-tier morgue worker. The masked leader raises his hand. Civilian. Leave. Corven almost appreciates the courtesy. Then he notices the corpse behind them. A ministry guard lies against the broken doorway. Dead recently. Very recently. Corven's class stirs. Interesting. The lead man takes another step. Now, our necromancer walks toward the body instead. That gets everyone's attention. The second operative draws a hooked blade. Wrong direction. Corven keeps moving. The leader looks at his face. Recognition arrives. There it is. Hail. The name changes the entire courtyard. Weapons rise. Not immediately aggressive. Prepared. Which means the severed throne has distributed his identity. That happened faster than Corven expected. Another deviation. He files it away. The leader's voice lowers. The utility necromancer. Corven glances at the silver mask. Apparently, the operative laughs. Take him. There it is, first contact. Real contact. Not Dane trapped behind a gate. Not surveillance. Not memory fragments. Actual enemies who know his name. The second operative moves first. Fast. painfully fast. A hooked blade tears toward Corven's throat, and this is where reality becomes extremely inconvenient. Oryx Vol remembers how to defeat attacks like this. Corven's body does not. He sees the angle, understands the shoulder rotation, recognizes the feint hidden behind the wrist, then gets punched in the ribs anyway. The impact throws him across the courtyard. His back smashes against stone. Breath disappears. The operative does not pause. Another strike. Corven rolls. The hook slices through his coat and opens his upper arm. Blood hits the ground. Yeah, knowledge is incredible. Bones are still useful. The masked fighter kicks him in the stomach. Corven folds. A third operative approaches from the side. The leader does not participate. Smart. He is observing. Corven notes that through the pain. The second operative grabs his collar. Where is the fragment? Corven looks at the man's stance. Weight forward, right heel lifted. Hook held close because the weapon is designed for tendon control, not killing. Capture specialist. The third operative carries 3 metal rings around one wrist, mana dampeners, so they want him alive. That changes the fight. Corven smiles. The operative hesitates. Tiny mistake. Corven drives his thumb into a nerve beneath the man's wrist, a technique from a dead prison guard. Simple, no great strength required. The grip opens. Corven drops. A hooked blade passes over his head. He takes another kick to the shoulder. Pain flashes. But now our guy is watching properly. Stage 1 is ugly. Exactly as expected, he is slower, weaker, less experienced physically. Every direct exchange favors them, so he stops trying to win exchanges. Oryx never defeats stronger forces by pretending they are equal. Corven crawls behind a broken stone column. The third operative throws one of the dampening rings. It expands midair. Corven ducks. The ring clamps around the column instead. Black lines spread through the stone. Mana in the area collapses. Corven notices something immediately. The enemy caster behind him flinches too. Interesting. The dampener affects everyone inside its radius. Not selective. The second ring comes. Corven lets it land closer. Mana pressure drops again. His own reserves become painfully thin. The operative slow, barely, enough. Our Necromancer stops retreating. Now he reads. The leader remains 13 paces away. Capture specialist in front, dampener on the right, fourth operative behind the doorway. That fourth one is the real danger. No visible weapon, no obvious spell. But every time Corven moves toward open ground, the others subtly adjust to push him away from that angle. Protection behavior. Oryx's memories immediately supply the principle. Armies reveal what matters by what they defend. Corven does not look directly at the fourth operative again. Instead, he studies reflections in broken glass. The hidden specialist raises 2 fingers. No incantation. A thin distortion travels across the courtyard. Corven recognizes nothing. That is new. Oryx recognizes nothing either. Another mismatch. For the first time since absorbing the king, Corven encounters magic outside Oryx's remembered arsenal. The distortion touches a dead guard. The corpse disappears. Not moves. Not burns. Disappears. Corven's eyes sharpen. They are erasing bodies. No corpses. No memories. An anti-necromancer disposal technique, designed specifically against evidence extraction. The severed throne has prepared for people like him before. That realization changes the entire objective. Corven originally wanted one operative alive. Wrong priority. If the fourth operative can erase dead memories, then the most valuable target is not the leader. It is that specialist. Our guy recalculates again. Oryx appears for half a heartbeat. The king points toward the fourth figure. Corven already agrees. Now comes stage 3. He reaches inside the inherited archive. Not for swordsmanship, not forbidden magic. Something smaller. The same funeral script he used against Dane. One symbol. Residual intent. The technique is weak under the dampening field. Perfect. Weak looks harmless. Corven presses 2 bloody fingers against the courtyard stone. Mana barely responds. The capture specialist laughs. That's it? Corven does not answer. The operative steps closer. Exactly what Corven wants. See, funeral script does not raise bodies. It calls the final intent impressed into the environment by violent death. Normally that residue is chaotic, useless. Oryx discovered how to give it direction. And 6 minutes ago, several ministry guards died defending this courtyard. Corven does not need their skeletons. He needs what they were trying to do at the moment they died. Protect the vault. One symbol forms beneath his fingertips. Ugly, incomplete, barely stable. But it works. The air changes. The capture specialist stops smiling. A phantom motion erupts through Corven's senses. Not ghosts, memories of action. A dead guard's last shield movement. Another guard's final spear thrust. A third man's desperate attempt to pull a lever near the doorway. Corven sees all 3. Then the technique does something unexpected. For one impossible second, the memories overlap his body. His left arm remembers raising a shield he has never owned. His right foot remembers a spear stance he never learned. His eyes remember dying from 3 different angles. Corven nearly collapses. Too much. Oryx's warning flashes through him. Separate. Categorize. Command. Our necromancer grabs only one memory. The lever. A dead guard tried to reach it before being killed. Why? Corven follows the remembered angle. There, behind shattered masonry. A red emergency handle. He understands immediately. The vault's containment system. The Severed Throne operatives understand 1 second later. That is 1 second too slow. Corven throws a piece of broken stone. Not at an enemy, at the handle. His arm does not have a legendary warrior's strength. It does have a Dead Street magician's precision. The stone hits. The lever drops. The courtyard detonates with containment wards. Silver barriers slam down from every archway. The leader curses. The dampener specialist turns. The 4th operative loses concentration. That is the opening. Corven moves. Not fast, efficiently. 1 step through the capture specialist's blindside. Oryx's battlefield awareness predicts the hook. Corven bends before it arrives. The blade misses. He drives an elbow into the operative's throat. Weak strike. Wrong body. Not enough damage. So he follows with something a deceased dock worker once remembered very clearly. A headbutt. That one works. The operative staggers. Corven takes the hook blade. Immediately drops it. He does not know the weapon well enough. Knowing when not to use a tool is apparently another dead man's skill. The 3rd operative releases the final dampening ring. Corven kicks the first ring across the stone. It collides mid-air. Both devices activate against each other. Mana vanishes from half the courtyard. Every spell collapses, including the 4th operative's corpse erasure technique. Corven wanted that. He reaches the dead guard first. 2 fingers touch the corpse. A memory explodes open. Death. Silver masks. Commands. The 4th operative speaking. Erase every body after extraction. Good. Voice confirmed. Authority relationship confirmed. Then another memory surfaces from moments earlier. The dead guard sees the leader remove something from the vault. Not a crown. A rectangular black tablet. The guard recognizes it. Evidence catalog number 713. Recovered 42 years ago from a mass grave beneath the old palace. Corven stores the detail. The memory ends. The leader charges. No more restraint. A short sword appears in his hand. Real combatant. Corven barely avoids the first strike. The second cuts his side. The third would enter his heart. Oryx moves inside the mnemonic chamber. For the first time, the king does not simply show Corven a memory. He raises his own hand. A door opens behind him. Not fully, just enough. A single technique crosses the threshold. King's division. Corven understands the principle instantly. Do not perceive one battlefield. Divide it into independent problems. Threat, terrain, intent, resource, timing. 5 layers. Process separately. Then recombine. The technique is mental. No mana required. Exactly what Corven can use. Everything slows. Not physically, cognitively. Threat, sword entering from lower left. Terrain, loose ash beneath leader's rear foot. Intent, kill, no longer capture. Resource, broken dampener ring beside Corven's heel. Timing, 4th operative beginning another erasure spell. 5 pieces. 1 answer. Corven steps backward onto the dampener ring, kicks it upward. The leader instinctively cuts it. The blade completes the circuit. Mana suppression erupts directly through the sword. His reinforcement spell dies. Corven drives both palms into the man's chest. Again, not strong enough. But the ash beneath the leader's heel gives way. His footing slips. Half a second. Corven turns aside. The leader falls directly into the 4th operative's casting line. The corpse erasure distortion hits him. Only partially. His left arm vanishes from the elbow down. The scream is immediate. Everyone freezes, even Corven, not from horror, because he has just learned something critical. The technique works on living flesh. The 4th operative stares at what they have done. Corven moves before they recover. The dead prison guard's nerve strike. The scout's footwork. The magician's hand speed. Oryx's battlefield division. 4 dead people, 1 living body. Corven crosses the distance and slams the 4th operative's wrist against the containment barrier. The caster drops, not unconscious, disoriented. Enough. The remaining operative runs. Corven lets him. Deliberately. Someone needs to report what happened, but not accurately. The wounded leader lies against the courtyard floor, staring at his missing arm. What are you? Corven breathes hard. Blood runs down his side. His hands shake from neurological overload. Not impressive looking. Not invincible. Good. Let the story remain incomplete. He kneels beside the fourth operative and removes the silver mask. A woman, mid-30s. Black veins around the eyes from overusing the erasure technique. Corven touches her forehead while she is still conscious. Nothing happens. His ability needs death. She laughs weakly. You can't read me. Correct. Her smile grows. Then Corven reaches toward the dead guard beside her instead. That smile disappears. He summons the guard's last memory again. This time, he watches the woman's casting sequence carefully. Finger order, breathing pattern, mana displacement. Not enough to copy the spell. Enough to understand its structure. That matters. Oryx's archive reacts. One sealed door unlocks by a fraction. Forbidden counter-ritual theory. Corven feels it waiting. Future weapon. Not usable yet. Perfect. He stands. Ministry sirens finally begin screaming in the distance. 23 minutes late. Corven looks toward the surviving Severed Throne operative disappearing between buildings. Then toward the black evidence tablet lying beside the wounded leader. He picks it up. The surface is engraved with no title. Only one line. 806 memory signatures confirmed. Corven's expression goes still. Oryx is not unique. The crown was not built for one king. It was built to store many dead lives. Possibly hundreds. Possibly more. The leader sees Corven reading. You think they were heroes? Corven looks at him. The man laughs through the pain. You really know nothing. Ministry boots thunder toward the courtyard. Too late to question further. Corven pockets the tablet. Then he does something far more valuable than killing the man. He leaves him alive, a leader with one arm erased by his own operative. A failed mission, a stolen evidence tablet missing, and one surviving subordinate carrying a fragmented account of a useless necromancer who somehow turned ministry defenses, dead guards, criminal tricks, and an ancient king's strategy against 4 trained agents. Let the Severed Throne argue about what Corven can actually do. Confusion is protection. Before the ministry enters, Corven walks away through a service passage remembered by the dead guard. His first real fight leaves him with 3 cracked ribs, a deep cut in his side, severe mnemonic overload, and no combat license whatsoever. It also leaves him with King's Division, a partially mapped corpse erasure technique, a black tablet tied to 806 memory signatures, and confirmation that somebody inside the ministry delayed emergency response for the Severed Throne. More importantly, Oryx Vol is no longer the only dead person fighting through Corven. Tonight, a prison guard moves his hands. A scout guides his feet, a street magician sharpens his timing, and a king divides the battlefield inside his head. 4 memories. 1 Necromancer. Corven steps into the rain before the ministry can see him leave. His next problem is no longer learning how to summon the dead. It is learning how many of them his mind can hold before Corven Hale becomes the smallest voice inside his own skull. Corven Hale discovers that 806 dead people can make a very crowded room, not physically. That would honestly be easier. The black evidence tablet sits on the floor of his rented training chamber while faint silver names crawl across its surface one by one. Soldiers, mages, doctors, engineers, assassins, priests, kings, criminals, people erased from official history, people whose remains were apparently recovered from the same mass grave beneath the old royal palace 42 years ago. And every single one of them carries a registered memory signature. Corven watches the list in silence. Oryx Vol stands beside him inside the mnemonic chamber. The ancient king has become more stable since East Vale, not stronger. Clearer. His face no longer flickers. His armor retains detail. Even the old scratches along the breastplate remain visible between sessions. That is the first improvement. The second is far more useful. Oryx can now communicate through deliberate memory selection. He still rarely speaks. Instead, he opens doors, shows battles, places objects on the stone table, moves pieces around a map. Primitive conversation, but conversation nonetheless. Our necromancer touches the evidence tablet. Nothing. No memory opens. Expected. The artifact itself is not dead. He tries again while touching Oryx's crown fragment with his other hand. The mnemonic chamber trembles. Now the tablet responds. 806 lines appear across the stone table. Oryx looks at them, then immediately covers 798 with his palm. 8 remain. Corven studies the selection: a siege architect, a plague physician, a royal executioner, a court sorcerer, 2 battlefield commanders, a woman listed only as White Falcon, and someone whose identity has been deliberately removed. All 8 died within the same 36-hour period. Corven narrows his eyes. Connected, Oryx places 1 black piece beside the names, then 7 more, 8 victims. 1 event. The king taps the blank identity last. Hard. Important. Corven leaves the memory chamber. That becomes his first project. Not finding stronger corpses, finding the right ones. See, before East Vale, Corven thinks his ability grows vertically. More powerful dead person, more powerful memory. Simple. Wrong. His real advantage grows sideways. A lockbreaker gives him what Oryx cannot. A physician gives him what a general does not know. A dead accountant might notice financial manipulation that a saint completely ignores. One legendary life is terrifying. 10 specialized lives working together are worse. So Corven begins building a library. Carefully, legally where possible, creatively where necessary. He registers a private mnemonic consultancy using the most boring name imaginable. Hale Postmortem Analysis. No mention of combat. No mention of ancient kings. No mention of stolen ministry evidence. Official services include death scene reconstruction, occupational memory recovery, inheritance verification, and accident investigation. It sounds harmless. That is exactly why clients arrive. The first is a merchant house. A warehouse supervisor dies during a supposed structural collapse. The owners want to know whether negligence caused it. Corven touches the corpse. The final memory gives him smoke, falling timber, a cracked support beam, nothing unusual, so he searches earlier. 2 days back, the dead supervisor inspects the same beam, solid. 1 day back, still solid, 3 hours before death. A delivery crew brings in sealed ceramic drums. One worker wears boots stained with pale green powder. Corven exits the memory. Oryx contributes siege sabotage recognition. A deceased carpenter contributes timber chemistry. A dead smuggler contributes concealment habits. 3 memories combine. Our guy walks to the warehouse and cuts open the fallen support beam. Green residue sits deep inside the grain. Alchemy solvent. The collapse is sabotage. The merchant family pays triple. More importantly, they tell people. Within a week, Hale Postmortem Analysis gets 7 clients, then 12, then 23. The city begins changing around Corven without realizing who is causing it. Insurance houses ask him to verify suspicious deaths. Guilds ask him to reconstruct failed dungeon raids. One noble household secretly hires him to determine whether their patriarch changed his will under coercion. Corven never advertises. He does not need to. Dead people have remarkably powerful word of mouth. His reputation grows. Still small, still respectable, still non-combat. Perfect. Meanwhile, our necromancer uses every job twice. Once for the client, once for himself. A deceased stonemason teaches him how noble mansions hide maintenance tunnels. A dead apothecary teaches him how mana suppressants smell before activation. A courier teaches him route prediction across the capital. A retired duelist contributes foot placement. A disgraced archivist remembers obsolete indexing systems. Corven does not absorb everything permanently. That would destroy him. Instead, he creates categories inside the mnemonic chamber. Rx helps. The blank circular archive begins changing. Doors become wings. Combat, arcana, medicine, craft, espionage, administration, languages, navigation, social behavior. Each memory receives a location. Each specialist receives limits. Corven discovers that deliberate organization reduces neurological contamination by almost half. That is massive. Previously, memories crash into one another randomly. Now the king separates them. Oryx is no longer merely Corven's strongest memory. He is becoming the custodian of the dead, and that becomes dangerous in a different way. One night, Corven enters the mnemonic chamber and finds the ancient king moving information without permission. A dead poisoner's memories have been sealed behind a black door. 3 childhood recollections belonging to the carpenter have been moved into a protected section. An executioner's final killing technique has been isolated completely. Corven studies Oryx. You're filtering them. The king looks back, then nods. First unmistakable answer. Corven feels no relief, only a colder question. Based on what? Oryx does not respond. Instead, he opens a memory. A battlefield infirmary. A young Oryx stands beside soldiers suffering from magical contamination. A healer explains that foreign mana does not merely damage flesh, it changes identity. Enough foreign patterns inside one body, and eventually the body no longer knows which pattern belongs to itself. The memory ends. Corven understands immediately. Oryx is not protecting him from information. He is protecting Corven Hale from becoming an average of everyone he absorbs. That makes the ancient king useful. It also makes him powerful inside Corven's own mind. Our necromancer files that concern beside the severed throne. Useful things still require surveillance. Outside, the enemy is doing exactly what Corven expected. They investigate the false crematorium lead. Then they investigate him, quietly. A tax auditor visits Hale Postmortem Analysis. 2 guild inspectors arrive the next day. A ministry ethics officer asks why Corven is accessing so many unclaimed corpses. None accuse him directly. They are measuring him. He gives them almost nothing. Receipts are perfect. Licenses are valid. Memory records are deliberately mundane. Then the severed throne makes a larger move. One of Corven's clients disappears. Bennett Vale, 48 years old, independent notary. The same man who brought Corven the noble will case. 2 days later, Bennett's body appears in a canal. No eyes. No tongue. Fingertips burned. And the back of his skull carries a circular wound. Corven sees it and immediately recognizes the technique. Memory destruction. Different from the corpse erasure spell in East Vale. More precise. Whoever killed Bennett physically damaged the brain regions most important to Corven's access. Someone has learned. Our guy touches the corpse anyway. The mnemonic space fractures instantly. No coherent scene. Just noise, water, pain. A silver mask. A hallway. A number. 49. Then static. Corven withdraws. The morgue attendant asks whether he got anything. Nothing useful. A lie. The number is enough. Oryx opens a memory before Corven even asks. Old military intelligence. Captured agents sometimes memorize addresses as numbers instead of names. Corven cross-references 49 against Bennett's route history. Courier memory. Municipal maps. Old zoning records. One match stands out. Building 49 in the former Ministry Census District. Officially abandoned. Actually owned by a shell company created 19 years ago. That shell company shares a legal representative with one of the firms currently auditing Hale postmortem analysis. Now the board begins connecting. Corven does not raid Building 49. He does something much more irritating. He buys the property next door, through a merchant client, then rents the basement to a laundry cooperative. Why? Steam. Constant plumbing noise. Night workers. Delivery carts. The perfect environmental cover. A dead civil engineer's memory shows Corven how to map underground structures through pipe vibration. RX provides siege acoustic principles. The technique takes 9 days to refine. Corven sits beneath the laundry floor each night, one palm against a copper water pipe. Footsteps travel through the system. Doors. Machinery. Elevators. Eventually, he builds a rough map of Building 49 without entering it once. 4 basement levels. 2 concealed staircases. 1 chamber surrounded by material that dampens vibration. That chamber matters. Everything important gets protected. Oryx would say the same. Corven starts building influence around the location. A night watchman in the district owes his life to a memory reconstruction that cleared him of murder. A merchant family owes Corven for proving sabotage. The laundry owner likes him because he pays on time. A gate team hires his consultancy after losing 2 hunters underground. 3 weeks ago, Corven had no network. Now he has one. Not servants, not cultists, not undead. People. Ordinary people whose problems he has solved. That is considerably harder to notice than a skeleton army. And the severed throne notices too late. One afternoon, the tax auditor visits again. Her name is Lysa Wren. 32. Perfect posture. Minimal jewelry. No divided crown tattoo. Corven already knows she is connected. The dead notary's shell company records confirm it. Still, he offers tea. Lysa sits across from him. Business is growing quickly. So are taxes. Most people complain. Most people cannot summon accountants. That almost makes her smile. Good. Corven needs her relaxed. She places a document on his desk. Your corpse access volume has increased by nearly 600%. Clients die inconveniently. Your humor has improved too. Interesting. She has read older reports, not just recent ones. Lysa leans forward. East Vale changed you. There, direct pressure. Corven looks at her. I got stabbed. People usually become more cautious after being stabbed. They also become better at avoiding knives. Lysa studies him. The air stays pleasant. Neither believes it. Then she places something else on the desk. A photograph, the black evidence tablet. Corven does not react. Exactly as the dead stage actor taught him. No eye widening, no defensive hand movement, no breathing change. Seen this before? She asks. No. Lysa watches him. He watches her back. Oryx's interrogation memories stir, but Corven does not use them aggressively. Overacting knowledge is still acting. The safest lie contains boredom. He looks back at the tax document instead. You came here about accounting irregularities. Among other things. Then tax me. That gets the smile. Small, cold. Lysa collects the photograph. Before standing, she deliberately leaves one sheet behind. Corven notices. She knows he notices. So this is not an accident. After she leaves, he waits 30 minutes. Then another 10. No surveillance movement outside. He finally turns over the abandoned page. Blank. At first, heat from the tea changes that. A faint symbol emerges. Not the divided crown. a tower split into 8 vertical sections. Underneath sits one line. The 8th vault remains closed. Corven stares at it. This is not a threat. The severed throne uses the divided crown. Someone else uses the tower. Unless the throne itself has internal factions, the evidence tablet beneath his floor warms. Oryx forces the mnemonic chamber open. Corven appears beside the stone table. The king is already standing. He sees the tower symbol. And for the first time since Corven awakens him, Oryx steps backward. One step. That is more alarming than panic would have been. Our necromancer places the page on the table. You know it. Oryx does not answer. He walks toward the sealed black door marked with the divided crown. Then past it. Corven has never noticed another door behind it. Smaller. White stone. No handle. 8 vertical lines carved into the surface. The same symbol. Corven feels the chamber tighten. Oryx touches the door. Nothing opens. Instead, cracks spread across the floor. Memories leak through. Not complete scenes. Fragments. A palace burning. 8 people kneeling around a circular mechanism. Oryx shouting. The white falcon bleeding from the mouth. Someone removing their own name from a record. A sentence spoken in a language Corven does not know. Then one phrase arrives clearly enough to understand. Do not let the 8th remember. The entire chamber collapses. Corven wakes on the office floor. Blood runs from both nostrils. The tea has gone cold. The page with the tower symbol has blackened at the edges, even though nothing burned it. Our necromancer sits up slowly. No dramatic disbelief. No useless shock. Just inventory. The severed throne knows about him. Somebody connected to Building 49 knows about the evidence tablet. Lysa Ren deliberately delivers a symbol Oryx recognizes. And one of the 8 linked memory signatures on the tablet belongs to a person whose identity was deliberately erased. 8 victims. 8 vaults. An 8th memory. Corven had assumed the mass grave beneath the palace contained people who died together. Now he suspects something worse. They may have been buried together because they participated in the same event. He opens his notebook. Turns to the list of 8. Then circles the unnamed entry. Oryx's influence remains quiet behind his eyes. For once, the king does not offer strategy. That silence tells Corven more than any battle memory could. Whatever waits behind the white door frightens the most powerful ruler who ever lived. So naturally, Corven decides he is going to open it, but not yet. First, he needs Building 49. He closes the notebook. Across the street, Lysa Ren enters a black carriage and hands a sealed report to a man Corven cannot see. Beneath the laundry next door to Building 49, pipes continue carrying every footstep through the walls. And inside Corven's mnemonic chamber, the white falcon's name appears on the stone table by itself, for exactly 1 second. Then beneath it, a second line writes itself without Oryx touching anything. She remembered the 8th. Building 49 does not contain a secret headquarters. That would have been much simpler. It contains a grave that the city has been pretending is an office basement for 19 years. Corven Hale discovers this at 3:17 in the morning when the laundry boiler next door abruptly stops vibrating. Every pipe goes silent. Every footstep inside Building 49 disappears with it. Then something beneath the 4th basement level starts beating. Once. Twice. Again, not like machinery, like a heart buried under 4 floors of stone. Corven sits beneath the laundry with one palm against the copper line and immediately removes it. Oryx Vol appears behind his eyes. No stone table, no battlefield, just the ancient king standing in absolute darkness. He shakes his head once. Clear answer, do not go down there. Corven rises. He starts packing equipment. Apparently communication is improving. So is disagreement. Over the last 2 weeks, our necromancer has mapped almost every accessible section of Building 49 through vibration, corpse memories, municipal records, and delivery schedules. He knows when guards rotate. He knows which stairs are trapped. He knows that one basement room consumes more cooling crystals than an entire hospital wing. What he does not know is why Oryx suddenly wants him nowhere near it. That makes the room considerably more important. Corven opens a narrow case. No sword. No staff. Inside are tools assembled from dead people's expertise. A locksmith's tension picks. An alchemist's neutralizing powder. A hunter's emergency mana wire. 3 paper seals copied from an obsolete ministry storage system. And a small silver needle. That one is new. The needle belongs to nobody. Corven made it himself. Its design comes from 3 memories combined. A surgeon teaches nerve-safe insertion. A court sorcerer teaches mana conduction. Oryx teaches mnemonic partitioning. The result is crude, dangerous, and potentially revolutionary. Corven calls it an anchor needle. If overloaded memories begin contaminating one another, the needle theoretically gives his mind a fixed physical stimulus to return to. Theoretically, he has tested it on exactly 1 rat carcass memory. So naturally, tonight is probably the perfect time to trust it with his brain. Our guy leaves through the laundry cellar. The entrance into Building 49 is not a hidden door, it is a wastewater channel. A dead city engineer remembered that older census structures share emergency drainage with neighboring buildings. Nobody remembers civil infrastructure until someone needs to invade a secret organization. Corven crawls through black water for 40 meters, very glamorous. At the end, he reaches an iron grate, locked from the other side. The burglar's memory takes over his fingers. 6 seconds. Open. He enters the first basement. No alarm. Good. The corridor smells of dust and chilled manna. The walls are ordinary stone. That bothers him. Organizations hiding ancient memory technology usually decorate themselves with expensive stupidity. Building 49 looks deliberately forgettable. Gray walls, wooden doors. Numbered rooms, cheap lamps. Oryx's strategic instinct supplies the obvious reason. Real secrecy does not look secret. Corven moves. His first target is not the lower vault. It is room 12, records. He knows because 3 different night workers enter that room after every delivery. Corven unlocks it. Shelves. Hundreds of document boxes. No magical protection. Again, almost insulting. He takes nothing immediately. Instead, he reads filing labels. Burial transfers. Mortuary acquisitions. Cognitive remnants. Vessel failure. That last category appears 17 times. Corven pulls one box. Inside are medical reports. Most names have been removed. The remaining terminology is enough. Neurological fragmentation. Identity collapse. Foreign recollection. Dominance. Mnemonic rejection. Terminal personality substitution. Corven reads faster. Not because he is surprised, because Oryx's earlier warning just acquired clinical documentation. People have tried what Corven is doing before. Many times. And most of them stopped being themselves. One report includes a diagram. A human brain divided into concentric rings. The center is marked Original Self. Around it sit foreign memory layers. The outermost ring carries a note. Echo capacity limit varies by vessel. Corven's eyes stop. Vessel. Same word used by the dead messenger. The failed vessel has opened again. He turns the page. Another term appears. Crown compatibility. Then another. Successful subjects. 7. Failed subjects. 211. Corven closes the file. 7. Not 8. Interesting. A soft sound comes from the corridor. He freezes. Footsteps. 2 guards. Corven returns the box exactly where it was. The footsteps stop outside. One guard speaks quietly. Level 4 is active. The other swears. Again, the white chamber reacted. Corven's attention sharpens. White. The symbol. The door inside Oryx's archive. The first guard lowers his voice. Ren wants all surface personnel upstairs. Lysa Ren. There it is. Not a tax auditor. Obviously. But apparently important enough to issue orders here. The guards leave. Corven waits. Then changes his plan. Originally, he intended to inspect the records, identify leadership, and retreat. Not anymore. Level 4 is active now. Oryx is warning him now. Whatever is happening below may not happen again. Corven descends. Second basement. Empty. Third basement. 2 abandoned operating rooms. Not morgues. Operating rooms. Restraint frames line the walls. Each chair has a metal crown suspended above it. Not Oryx's crown. Copies. Smaller. Crude. Some are stained with dried blood. Corven approaches one. The interface behind his eyes reacts weakly. No deceased imprint. No memory. But the crown fragment beneath his coat turns cold. Our necromancer examines the device. A dead machinist contributes mechanical comprehension. A court sorcerer adds rune analysis. Oryx contributes nothing. That absence is almost louder than advice. The device does not store memories. It transfers them. From one human mind into another. Corven studies the restraint straps. Suddenly, the phrase vessel failure becomes very literal. The severed throne has spent decades putting dead memories into living people, not summoning them, forcing them. The copies are unstable because ordinary minds cannot organize foreign lives. Corven can. His class does naturally what these machines have been trying to manufacture. That explains interest. It does not explain fear. He continues downward. The 4th basement door has no lock, only 8 vertical lines. Corven touches the symbol. The white door inside his mnemonic chamber reacts. Oryx appears instantly. This time, he grabs Corven's wrist. First physical contact. The sensation is impossible. A memory should not have grip strength, yet the king's fingers tighten around him. Corven looks down, then up. You really don't want this opened. Oryx's expression hardens. Corven waits. The king finally speaks. 2 words. Not sealed. Corven goes still. That changes the meaning completely. The chamber is not sealed to keep people out. It is sealed to keep something in. The physical door ahead clicks, opens by itself. Cold, white light spills through. Corven steps inside. The room is circular. No furniture. No guards. No machinery. Only 8 stone coffins arranged around a central pit. 7 are open. 1 remains closed. Each open coffin contains no body. Instead, thousands of black threads stretch from the empty interior toward the central pit. Memory conductors. Corven recognizes their function immediately. The crown devices upstairs are crude copies. This is the original architecture. The source. He approaches the first coffin. A name is carved along the rim. General Merovdane, one of the 8 signatures on the tablet. Second coffin. Saint Eli Ravos. Third, Archmage Cedron Vale. Fourth, the White Falcon. No real name. 3 more follow. All match the selected signatures Oryx showed him. Then Corven reaches the 8th. Closed. No name. Only the divided crown. His heartbeat slows. The central pit begins humming. Black threads tighten. And suddenly every open coffin releases a memory at once. Not into Corven, into the room. 7 figures appear. Faint. Incomplete. Not ghosts. Mnemonic projections. A battlefield commander stands beside a plague physician. A scarred executioner kneels with one hand on a sword. A sorcerer whose eyes burn white looks toward the sealed coffin. And the White Falcon stands closest to it. A woman in damaged pale armor. Exactly the fragment Corven saw inside Oryx. The scene begins replaying. Corven does not move. This is not random. This is the event. The one connecting all 8. The mnemonic projection of Oryx appears among them. Younger, bleeding, furious. The 7 surround a massive structure Corven cannot fully see because the memory is incomplete. Something inside the 8th coffin is speaking. No clear words, just layers of voices. Hundreds, maybe thousands. Oryx shouts an order. The memory distorts. The White Falcon drives a blade into the floor. The plague physician breaks a glass vessel against the coffin. The court sorcerer burns symbols across the lid. Then something reaches through, not a hand. Memories, whole lives. Images flash through the room faster than Corven can process them. Kings being crowned, children drowning, cities burning. Weddings, executions, births, wars, languages, faces. Too many. The 7 begin collapsing. One grabs his own head. Another starts speaking in 3 voices simultaneously. The White Falcon remains standing longest. She looks directly at Oryx. Then does something Corven does not understand. She presses 2 fingers against her own forehead, pulls out a thread of white light, and cuts it. The name carved beneath her image disappears. Not physically. Conceptually, Corven feels the act rather than sees it. She removes herself from whatever memory system is attacking them. The 8th coffin screams. The chamber shakes. The historical Oryx moves. He does not destroy the coffin. He places the crown on his own head, the same crown whose fragment Corven now carries. Every black thread in the chamber redirects toward him. Corven's stomach drops. He finally understands. Oryx Vol was not placed inside the crown after death. He used the crown while alive. The greatest king in history did not create an archive of his own memories. He turned himself into a prison. The memory collapses. The real chamber returns. Corven remains standing between the coffins. Oryx appears beside him. Modern mnemonic Oryx. Silent. The pieces finally connect. The crown. The mass grave. The 7 successful subjects. The severed throne. The word vessel. The white door. Corven looks at the closed 8th coffin. You weren't the source. Oryx's jaw tightens. You were the lock. The ancient king nods. There it is. The deeper layer. Corven's cheat code did not awaken because he found the memories of the world's greatest king. His ability interacted with a containment system built to imprison something capable of consuming and combining the memories of the dead. Something the severed throne has spent centuries trying to recreate. Something behind the 8th coffin. And Corven has been opening Oryx's archive door by door, not merely gaining skills, potentially weakening the lock. The realization is brutal. Corven does not panic. He recalculates. First, objective changes immediately. Stop opening Oryx's sealed sectors blindly. Second, understand what the 8th entity actually is. Third, prevent the severed throne from reaching it. Fourth, find out why Lysa Ren deliberately gave him the tower symbol if she works inside the same structure. Faction split. Almost certainly. Before Corven can examine the coffin further, applause echoes behind him. Slow. Measured. Lysa Ren stands in the doorway. No tax documents this time. A narrow black blade hangs at her side. 4 masked operatives flank her. You got here faster than expected. Corven turns. You left directions. I left a test. Poorly disguised. That was the point. Lysa steps into the chamber. The masked guards stay behind. Interesting. She does not trust them near the coffins. Corven notices. She notices him noticing. Neither comments. Lysa looks toward Oryx. She cannot see him, but somehow she knows where the memory stands. That expression, she says, so he finally showed you. Corven remains still. No questions. Questions reveal ignorance. Lysa smiles faintly. Good. Then she raises 2 fingers. The 4 masked operatives suddenly attack her, not Corven. Her. Everything becomes chaos. One blade enters her shoulder. She twists aside from the second. A spell tears across the chamber. Corven moves before deciding whether he cares. King's division activates. Threat. Terrain. Intent. Resource. Timing. The room splits into layers. 2 operatives attack Lysa. One goes for Corven. The 4th runs directly toward the 8th coffin. There. Real objective. Corven ignores the blade coming for his ribs. Mostly. It cuts him anyway. He grabs the attacker's wrist using the dead prison guard's nerve strike, then kicks the operative toward Lysa. She understands instantly. Her black blade enters the man's thigh. Not lethal, efficient. The 4th operative reaches the coffin, places both hands on the lid. The divided crown symbol ignites. Oryx roars inside Corven's mind. Not speaks, roars. Every door in the mnemonic archive slams shut simultaneously. Corven nearly blacks out. The 8th coffin begins opening. 1 inch. That is enough. The chamber fills with voices, not external voices. Inside Corven, a dead child remembering summer, a murderer remembering his first victim, a queen remembering childbirth, a soldier remembering being crushed beneath cavalry, a priest remembering a god that no longer exists. Thousands of recollections strike at once. Corven drops to one hand. His identity starts dissolving under sheer volume. Name, Corven Hale. Age, 27. Occupation, memory consultant. Necromancer. He repeats facts internally. They begin slipping. Then he remembers the silver needle. Anchor. Our guide tears it from his case. Drives it beneath the skin near his collarbone. Pain. Sharp. Present. His pain. His body. His moment. The foreign memories recoil just enough. It works. Not perfectly. Enough. Corven grabs the nearest black thread. Terrible idea. Necessary idea. The system erupts. Unclassified mnemonic network detected. Collective memory architecture exceeds safe vessel threshold. Direct absorption impossible. Corven does not attempt absorption. He does something nobody in this chamber expects. He summons. His class has always been misunderstood, even by him. He thought summoning a memory meant experiencing it. Oryx showed him something different. Memories can act through him. So Corven chooses one. Not the strongest. The right one. The White Falcon. Her projection appears. Incomplete. Weak. Barely stable. She turns toward the opening coffin, immediately raises 2 fingers to her forehead. The same technique. Severance. Not a combat spell. A mnemonic isolation technique. Corven cannot execute it fully. His understanding is incomplete. But now he has seen the mechanism twice. Once historically, once through direct summoning. He copies the smallest principle. Cut connection. His fingers trace an invisible line. The black threads around the 8th coffin snap. 1, 3, 7. Not all. Enough. The lid crashes shut. Every voice disappears. Silence slams into the room. Corven nearly collapses with it. The White Falcon's projection remains for 1 second longer. She turns. Looks at him. Unlike before, this memory sees him, just like Oryx did. Then she glances toward Lysa. Recognition, not hostility. Interesting. The projection vanishes. Corven files that away despite the blood running from his nose. Later problem. Right now, the 4th operative is still touching the coffin. Corven crosses the distance. The man turns. His silver mask splits open. Beneath it sits the divided crown tattoo carved directly across his forehead. He whispers something. 8 becomes 1. Corven does not let him finish. The dead dockworker's headbutt returns. Brutal. Simple. Effective. The operative hits the floor. Lysa finishes the final attacker seconds later. 3 remain alive. 1 is unconscious. None are comfortable. Corven pulls the anchor needle from his shoulder. His hand shakes. Badly. Lysa looks at the snapped memory threads. Then at him. You just used Falcon Severance. Apparently. Nobody has reproduced that technique in 600 years. Then your research department is underperforming. She laughs once. Despite the blood on her sleeve, that reaction tells him enough. Lysa expected him to survive. She did not expect that. Corven turns toward the 8th coffin. The broken threads are slowly repairing themselves. Oryx appears beside it. The king touches one damaged strand. then looks at Corven. A new door appears inside the mnemonic chamber, not open, marked with the white falcon's symbol. And beside it, another structure begins forming, a circular frame, 7 empty slots surrounding one central position. Corven understands the implication immediately. Oryx was never meant to contain the 8th memory alone. The 7 others were part of the lock. 7 mnemonic specialists, 7 functions, 7 pieces of a containment system. Oryx became the central vessel only after the system failed. That means Corven does not need to absorb more power to strengthen the prison. He needs to reconstruct the 7-part formation. The weapon he requires for whatever comes next is not another legendary attack. It is a memory formation. Multiple dead experts acting simultaneously without contaminating one another. Exactly the problem he has already been trying to solve. The anchor needle was the first crude step. Falcon severance is the second. Corven looks toward the 7 open coffins. New objective: recover their complete signatures, build partitions, create independent channels. Then let the dead fight as themselves instead of forcing every life through Corven's brain at once. For the first time, the phrase crosses his mind with its full meaning. Not one necromancer, an entire council of the dead. Lysa wipes blood from her blade. We need to leave. Corven looks at her. We? The faction that just tried to open the coffin answers to the inner crown. Specific term, finally. And you? Outer registry. Another piece. 2 layers inside the severed throne. 1 preserving records. 1 attempting restoration. Lysa points toward the unconscious operatives. Those men were ordered to use you to reopen the 8th. Corven says nothing. She continues anyway. The inner crown believes the entity inside can absorb enough heroic memories to recreate the perfect ruler. There it is. Not resurrection, manufacture. A king built from every great dead person who ever existed. Corven looks toward Oryx. The ancient king's expression is pure contempt. Understandable. Lysa lowers her voice. They have been failing for centuries. Corven glances at the medical reports he remembers upstairs. 211 failed vessels, 7 successful, then himself. The failed vessel has opened again. Lysa's eyes sharpen. You heard that phrase. Corven does not confirm. He does not need to. A distant alarm sounds above them. Not ministry. Building 49. Lysa's expression changes. They know. Good. Finally, a problem with straightforward timing. Corven crouches beside the unconscious operative with the crown tattoo. Still alive. Useless for his ability. For now. So he does not kill him. That would be convenient. Convenience creates bad intelligence. Instead, Corven removes the man's mask, photographs the tattoo using a memory plate, takes the access ring from his hand, and leaves him breathing. Action first, answers later. Then he returns to the 8th coffin. 1 damaged black thread lies on the ground, detached, no longer connected to the entity. Oryx points at it. The white falcon's new door reacts. Corven understands. He wraps the thread around the silver anchor needle. The 2 materials fuse. Black mnemonic filament around silver metal. A new instrument. Not a weapon yet. A prototype. Something capable of carrying 1 memory channel outside Corven's main cognitive stream. Exactly what he will need if he intends to summon several legendary minds at once without losing himself. He pockets it. Lysa watches. What did you just make? Corven heads toward the door. Hopefully, a reason not to become 212. They leave as Building 40. 9 begins sealing itself floor by floor. Far above them, 3 members of the inner crown stand inside a chamber beneath the Ministry of Gates. Not masked, not hiding. 1 wears the insignia of a deputy minister. Another controls the Dominion's resurrection licensing office. The third is an elderly woman whose signature appears on Corven's original combat rejection. A black report rests between them. Building 49 breached. 8th vault response confirmed. Memory Necromancer demonstrated severance. Nobody speaks for several seconds. Then the deputy minister closes the report. Accelerate collection. The licensing director looks toward a wall covered in names, dead heroes, preserved remains, unclaimed relics, historical burial sites, hundreds of potential memory signatures. How many? The old woman answers. All of them. Back beneath the streets, Corven climbs through the wastewater channel with Lysa several meters behind him. His side hurts. His mind feels scraped hollow. Oryx has gone completely silent again. But the rules are finally clearer. The severed throne does not want to resurrect the dead. The inner crown wants to compress history's greatest dead minds into a single living vessel. Oryx once sacrificed his own memory archive to stop them. The White Falcon erased part of herself to seal what remained. And Corven's supposedly useless Necromancer class is the first natural mechanism ever discovered that can separate, summon, and organize those memories without immediately destroying the host. That does not make him their failed experiment. It makes him the missing component. Corven reaches the surface. Dawn is beginning above the capital. He removes the black-threaded anchor needle and studies it beneath the weak morning light. One channel, one dead mind, independent from his own. Not enough. Yet, he closes his hand around it. Behind his eyes, 7 empty positions wait around Oryx Vol. And for the first time, the king does not look like Corven's greatest weapon. He looks like the first member of an army that has not been summoned yet. 312 corpses disappear from registered burial sites in a single night. No alarms, no broken seals, no witnesses. By breakfast, the Ministry of Gates announces a clerical database failure. Corven Hale reads the notice while standing inside a room containing 6 dead heroes the ministry believes are still buried elsewhere. Yeah, the inner crown has stopped pretending. The room beneath Hale post-mortem analysis used to be a wine cellar. Now it looks like someone tried to build a laboratory using funeral equipment, military maps, surgical instruments, and the worst possible understanding of interior decoration. Copper wire covers one wall, 7 narrow tables form a circle, 6 bodies lie beneath gray cloth. The 7th table remains empty. At the center stands Corven. Oryx Vol waits behind his eyes. Around the ancient king, the mnemonic chamber has changed again. The original circular archive remains. But the 7 empty positions surrounding Oryx are no longer abstract marks. They have become chairs, stone, distinct, each one connected to the king by a narrow black line. Only one currently holds a figure. The White Falcon. Incomplete. Her appearance flickers every few seconds. Half the time she has a face. Half the time the memory refuses to preserve it. But she is there, and that alone is insane progress. Corven places the black-threaded anchor needle against the first corpse, General Merov Thane, one of the 7 original mnemonic specialists buried beneath the old palace. Finding his body takes 5 days, 3 favors, 1 forged transport authorization, and the memory of a deceased undertaker who once helped relocate royal remains during a flood. Oryx identifies him immediately. The general's corpse is almost perfectly preserved, no obvious injuries, no necromantic damage, but the skull has been opened before. Someone extracted tissue. The inner crown, probably decades ago. Corven ignores that for now. He inserts the anchor needle into the corpse's sternum, not the brain. The mnemonic thread does not need nervous tissue. It needs resonance. At least, that is the theory. The system behind his eyes stirs. Deceased identity confirmed. Mnemonic compatibility abnormal. External channel detected. Independent invocation attempt possible. Neurological risk remains severe. Corven breathes once. Begin. The corpse does not move. Good. That would honestly ruin the entire point. Instead, a man appears in the mnemonic chamber. Broad shoulders. Gray military cloak. One eye missing. General Merov Thane materializes in the second stone chair. Not fully. His hands flicker. His chest is transparent. His mouth moves without sound. Then the channel collapses. Corven doubles over. Blood hits the floor. Lysa Wren, standing beside the equipment table, does not rush toward him. He told her not to. Instead, she checks the timer. 4 seconds. Corven wipes his mouth. Better. Yesterday was 3. Exactly. That is not reassuring. It is measurable. Lysa gives him a long look. The outer registry has officially decided Corven is either the best chance of preventing the Inner Crown's plan or the final disaster required to complete it. Apparently, bureaucracy survives even inside secret societies. She places a clean cloth beside him. Corven takes it. No gratitude speech. No emotional conversation. They are both too busy. The Inner Crown has accelerated collection. Bodies of famous soldiers disappear. Historical relics are transferred under emergency orders. Private crypts receive ministry seizure notices. Dungeon casualties with unusual classes vanish before families can claim them. The pattern is obvious now. They are gathering memories. Not randomly. Strategically. Warriors. Researchers. Spell architects. Commanders. People whose knowledge would make a composite ruler more complete. The 8th is being fed. Corven does not know whether it can absorb memories without the coffin opening. He does know the Inner Crown believes it can. That is enough. Our Necromancer returns to the circle. 6 original specialists recovered. Merov Thane, Saint Illyra Voss, Archmage Cedrin Volley, Royal Executioner Bram Ossick, Siege Architect Luth Marrow. The White Falcon's corpse remains missing. Only her fragmented mnemonic signature survives. And the 7th physical body belongs to someone Corven did not expect, Oryx himself. Not the whole body, just 3 vertebrae, recovered from a sealed reliquary beneath an abandoned battlefield chapel. Lysa found them through outer registry records. Corven has not touched them. Oryx made his opinion extremely clear. The moment the reliquary entered the room, every door in the mnemonic archive locked simultaneously. Apparently, even history's greatest king has boundaries. Corven respects that. For now, he returns to Merov. Second attempt, needle. Thread, memory, the general appears. This time, Corven does not try to summon the entire identity. That was his mistake. The dead are too large. A complete person contains decades of irrelevant detail. Childhood, fear, taste, love, regret, habits, millions of fragments. Corven does not need Merov Thane. He needs Merov Thane performing one function, command coordination, so he narrows the invocation. Not who were you? What did you do when 7 minds had to act as one? The response is immediate. Merov appears. Stable, only from the waist up. No childhood, no personal history, no unnecessary emotional residue. Just the commander. He opens his remaining eye. The third stone chair in the mnemonic chamber lights up. 5 seconds. 6, 7. Then Merov lifts one hand. The white falcon turns toward him. Oryx does too. 3 dead legends acknowledge one another. Corven nearly loses consciousness, but the channel holds. 10 seconds. The general slams his fist against the stone table. Every open memory door reorganizes, not randomly, into tactical roles. Observation, arcana, control, medical support, countermeasure, execution, coordination. The architecture changes in one savage instant. Then Merov disappears. Corven hits the floor. Lysa checks the timer. 12 seconds. Our necromancer laughs once despite the blood running from his nose. Not because 12 seconds is impressive, because Merov just showed him what the 7 chairs were built to do. They are not storage positions, they are jobs. Oryx does not sit at the center because he is strongest. He sits there because someone needs to hold identity continuity, while the other 7 process specialized information. The original formation was not designed to create one perfect ruler. It was designed to prevent one mind from becoming overloaded while controlling an impossible mnemonic network. The Inner Crown reversed the concept. Of course they did. Take a safety system. Turn it into a weapon. History loves efficiency. Corven stands slowly. New objective. Assign roles, not personalities. That changes everything. Saint Alira becomes medical stabilization. Cedrin Vale becomes arcane interpretation. Luth Marrow becomes structural modeling. Bram Ossic becomes termination and hostile memory severance. Merov becomes coordination. White Falcon remains isolation. One chair is still empty. The unnamed 8th specialist. The one whose identity was erased. And Oryx remains center. 7 functions. 1 anchor. Corven spends the next 2 days testing. Badly. Very badly. Cedrin Vale's first invocation sets 3 lamps on fire. Alira Voss accidentally forces Corven to experience the pain responses of every injured person in the building. Bram Ossic appears once, looks directly at Corven, then cuts an entire memory corridor off from the archive. It takes 6 hours to restore. Oryx is furious. The executioner seems pleased. Progress. By the 4th night, Corven can hold 3 specialists for almost 15 seconds. Not full strength. Not full identity. Function only. And the strain is still brutal. But something else changes. They begin reacting to one another without Corven mediating every connection. Merov organizes. Alira limits neurological damage. Falcon isolates contamination. Oryx stabilizes identity. For 3 seconds, Corven experiences something completely new. Silence, not empty silence. Distributed thought. The dead are working. He is not personally processing every step. The mnemonic formation is becoming autonomous. That is the evolution warning, not a system message. Behavior. The companion is no longer Oryx alone. It is becoming the council. Then everything goes wrong outside. The ministry announces an emergency necromantic containment order. All independent corpse access licenses are suspended. Every unregistered memory specialist must surrender relics, remains, and historical artifacts within 24 hours. Hale postmortem analysis is named specifically. That is not pressure. That is a declaration. Corven reads the order once, then checks the signature. Deputy Minister Orlan Say. Inner Crown. Same man from the Building 49 report. Excellent. They finally step onto the board personally. Lysa enters the basement carrying 3 sealed folders. They are mobilizing the ministry. Already noticed. Not inspections this time. She drops the folders onto the table. Containment teams. Corven opens the first. 32 licensed corpse mages. Second. 2 anti-necromancy suppression units. Third. A special retrieval squad authorized to seize historically destabilizing mnemonic material. Corven studies the personnel. One name stands out. Director Selka Ven, the elderly woman who signed his original combat rejection. So that was never routine. Interesting. She blocked my license 3 years ago. Lysa nods. She blocks every necromancer whose class interacts with memory persistence. Why? Because field deaths create uncontrolled access. Opportunities. That is almost elegant. Keep memory necromancers out of gates. Keep them away from powerful corpses. Keep them poor. Keep them dependent on state morgues. Contain the entire class category before anyone discovers what it can actually do. Corven closes the file. His career was not an administrative joke. It was a cage. Useful information. Emotionally irritating, but still useful. The ministry gives him 24 hours. Corven uses 6, not to run. To prepare, his network activates. The merchant family relocates client records. The laundry cooperative empties the neighboring cellar. A gate team moves equipment through service tunnels without asking questions. The night watchman redirects 2 patrol routes. Nobody knows the whole plan. Nobody needs to. Corven built influence exactly for this moment. Ordinary people become infrastructure. No skeleton army required. Meanwhile, Lysa arranges for outer registry archives to leak just enough contradictory paperwork to split ministry retrieval teams between 4 false locations. The dead forger's memory helps improve transport manifests. The dead courier predicts which routes investigators will prioritize. Oryx assigns probabilities. Marov quietly reorganizes the mnemonic archive each time new information arrives. That last part is becoming almost unsettling. Corven does not consciously summon him anymore. The general appears when coordination pressure rises. Elira appears when neurological strain crosses a threshold. Falcon flickers whenever an unfamiliar memory signature enters range. The council is learning triggers. Companion evolution pending. Not announced. Demonstrated. Much better. At sunset, Corven receives another message. Not from the ministry, from Director Selka Ven. Handwritten, 1 sentence. Surrender the crown fragment and the evidence tablet, and your license will be restored. Corven stares at it. 3 years, 7 applications. Every rejection bearing some version of her authority. Now suddenly, legality is negotiable. Beautiful. Our necromancer folds the message, then places his old combat license denial beside it. Same handwriting on 1 annotation. 2 pieces from different years. Same person, same pressure. Oryx appears at the central table. Marov sits to his left. Falcon stands behind the empty chair. Corven puts both documents onto the mnemonic table. Oryx touches the old rejection. Marov touches the new offer. The conclusion is immediate. Selka has known about Corven longer than the crown incident, possibly from Awakening Day, which means his class was identified as dangerous before he ever understood it. Another piece. The pressure rises. 2 hours later, the first Hale client is arrested, then another. The ministry freezes Corven's business accounts. His apartment is sealed. His registered corpse access privileges disappear from the system. The public notice calls him a suspected mnemonic contamination risk. That phrase spreads quickly. People become afraid. Expected. Some clients withdraw support. Also expected. One merchant refuses to speak with him. A gate team cancels a meeting. The world around Corven tightens. Good. Pressure reveals structure. It shows him which relationships were transactions and which ones survive cost. The laundry owner keeps the basement open. The night watchman keeps sending patrol schedules. Bennett Vale's widow sends Corven her husband's old notary seal with no message attached. Small action. Important. Corven stores the seal beside his notebook. No sentimentality, no speech. He just makes sure it will be useful. By midnight, ministry teams surround 3 false safe houses. At one, they find burned paperwork. At another, empty corpse crates. At the third, an abandoned mnemonic testing rig deliberately left damaged. Every location tells the same story. Corven is desperate, unstable, running. Exactly what he wants them to believe. Director Selka sends another order. All teams converge on St. Ordel's ossuary. Why? Because Corven planted the last false trail there. A record suggesting Oryx's remaining crown pieces were hidden beneath the restricted catacombs, the same place this began. Trap continuity. The first lie at East Vale taught the inner crown that Corven chases royal relics. The second lie at St. Ordel's makes them believe he has returned to the source. They commit heavily, too heavily. Corven watches troop movement on a paper map. Oryx watches inside the mnemonic chamber. Marov moves pieces without being asked. 1, 2, 5. 9 ministry units shift east. Anti-necromancy teams follow. Selka herself leaves headquarters. Lysa studies the map. They're moving almost everything. Not everything. Corven points toward the ministry central archive. 1 containment unit remains, 1 resurrection battalion, and Deputy Minister Orlan Sai. The inner crown's leadership core, protected, but thinner. Exactly what Corven needs. Lysa looks at him. You're going after the ministry. Part of it. What part? Corven places a finger on a chamber beneath the archive. The location appears only on pre-war architectural maps. A deceased archivist remembered the stairwell. A city engineer remembered the foundation. Oryx remembers the original palace structure beneath it. 3 dead people. Same answer. The ministry headquarters sits directly above one of the old royal mnemonic vault access points. The inner crown did not infiltrate the ministry by coincidence. They built the modern institution on top of their ancient machinery. Corven has spent 6 parts searching outward. The source has been beneath the licensing office the entire time. Lysa exhales slowly. That chamber will have more protection than Building 49. Correct. And Say knows your ability now. Partially. He has anti-memory specialists. Probably. And we have what? Corven closes his eyes. The mnemonic chamber opens. Oryx at center. Marov stable. Falcon clearer than before. Alira appears for several seconds without being summoned. Cedrin manifests as a silhouette beside the arcane chair. Bram Ossic's blade rests across the execution seat, even though the man himself does not appear. Luth Marrow's hands form briefly over a map. 5 functions, then 6. Independent. For one breath, the entire formation nearly completes itself. The 7th empty chair pulses. The archive trembles. Every memory door aligns. Corven opens his eyes. Not enough yet. Lysa gives him a look. That was not the inspiring answer. It was the accurate one. Outside, bells ring across the capital. Ministry deployment. St. Ordel's has been surrounded. The inner crown thinks the final retrieval is beginning. Corven checks the time. Then removes the black-threaded anchor needle from its case. The thread around it has changed overnight. Tiny markings now cover the surface. 7 groups. 6 active. 1 blank. Nobody carved them. The council did. Corven studies the final empty mark. The unnamed specialist is beginning to leave traces. Not enough to identify them. Enough to prove the missing chair is responding. Somewhere inside the memory architecture, the 7th function is already awake. Oryx appears for 1 heartbeat. He places the final white piece beside the ministry archive, then turns it over. Black. Corven understands. The board is ready. He puts on his coat. Not armor. Not yet. The same dark coat worn by the useless morgue necromancer the ministry denied 7 times. Then he picks up Bennett Vale's notary seal, the black evidence tablet, the crown fragment, and the evolving anchor needle. Across the city, hundreds of ministry soldiers march toward an empty crypt. Director Selkoven personally enters St. Ordel's expecting to find Corven cornered below ground. Deputy Minister Orlan Say remains inside headquarters, believing his fortress is secure. And in the basement of a laundry shop, 1 tiny mana lamp goes out. Nothing dramatic. No explosion. No alarm, just darkness. Corven looks at it. The dead city engineer had predicted the Ministry Archive's emergency power draw would dip the district grid the moment its deep containment chamber opened. The lamp was wired specifically to that circuit. It has just gone dark. Corven closes the equipment case. The inner crown opened the vault for him. Every machine is now running. Every guard is where Corven expected. And every dead voice inside his head has finally gone quiet at the same time. That silence means only one thing. They are listening. The Ministry of Gates realizes it has been invaded when Corven Hale is already 3 floors below the licensing office. No alarms announce him. No skeleton army crashes through the doors. No zombies pour through shattered windows. Just 1 supposedly non-combat necromancer walking through a maintenance corridor remembered by a city engineer who died 15 years ago. Yeah. This is why underestimating support classes is expensive. Corven moves beneath the archive while nearly every major containment unit in the capital is surrounding St. Ordel's ossuary. Exactly where he wanted them. The trap began weeks ago with a fake notebook beneath an apartment floor. The Severed Throne stole it. Believed it. Acted on it. Then East Vale taught them Corven chases royal relics. St. Ordel's reinforced the pattern. Now Director Selkoven has committed almost the entire anti-necromancy division to protecting a crown that does not exist. The lie works because every previous lie trained them to believe the next one. That is the part amateurs miss. A trap does not become convincing when it is complicated. It becomes convincing when the target helps build it. Corven reaches the first security junction. 3 ministry wardens block the corridor. Heavy armor. Bone repulsion runes. Anti-summoning fields. Everything designed to prevent undead movement. Completely useless against a man carrying no undead. 1 warden raises a spear. Corven Hale. Our necromancer stops. Apparently, the wanted posters are circulating efficiently. Return all mnemonic contraband and kneel. Corven looks at the runes covering their armor. Oryx appears briefly within the inner chamber. Marov Thane takes the coordination chair. Cedrin Vale's silhouette forms beside the arcane position. 3 dead minds. 1 problem. The same cognitive structure Corven first used at East Vale activates again. King's Division. Threat. terrain, inte, resource, timing. Except now Marov processes spacing. Cedrin interprets the suppression runes. Arik stabilizes the whole picture. Corven no longer has to think through all 5 layers personally. The dead divide the battlefield for him. That is the difference. The first warden advances. Corven steps backward. Exactly once. The man expects retreat. Instead, Corven places 2 fingers against the wall. Funeral script. The technique first appeared in Saint Ordel's. Then against the severed throne. Now it unfolds across an entire ministry corridor. Residual intent floods the stone. Not from corpses currently present, from decades of dead prisoners, executed smugglers, failed raiders, containment casualties, guards who died protecting this building. The ministry headquarters has absorbed death for generations. Corven summons the memory of what those dead people were trying to do. Escape, resist, protect, attack. The corridor becomes crowded with invisible motion. The first warden suddenly reacts to a spear thrust that does not physically exist. His armor rune activates defensively. Wrong direction. Corven walks through the opening. The second warden swings. Marov predicts the formation correction. Corven ducks. A phantom memory of an executed prisoner slams against the man's perception from the left. Not enough to injure, enough to disrupt. Cedrin identifies the armor's suppression cycle. Every 12 seconds, the runes discharge accumulated foreign mana. Corven counts. 10, 11, 12. He presses funeral script into the floor. Every residual memory surges at once. The armor tries to reject all of them. The runes overload. 3 suits shut down simultaneously. No explosion. No grand spell. Just 3 extremely confused wardens suddenly wearing several 100 pounds of ordinary metal. Corven walks past them. One tries to grab his coat. The dead prison guard's nerve strike handles that. Still useful. Still humiliatingly simple. Corven reaches the stairwell. Behind him, the wardens shout for reinforcements. Good. Let them know. The quiet part is finished. Below, Deputy Minister Orlan Say already knows. He stands inside the deep containment chamber surrounded by 12 Inner Crown operatives. Unlike the men at East Vale, these people wear no masks. No point hiding anymore. One is a resurrection researcher. Another is a senior dungeon registrar. 2 are military necromancers. 3 work directly for ministry archives. The severed throne has not infiltrated government. Parts of government have always been the severed throne. At the center of the chamber sits a massive circular mechanism. 8 channels, 7 black, 1 white. The original mnemonic architecture. Orlan watches energy flow through the machine. 312 stolen corpse signatures pulse across the surrounding rings. Dead heroes, dead sorcerers, dead hunters, dead scholars. Everything the Inner Crown collected during the purge. All being fed toward one central conduit, the 8th. Orlan turns when an alarm finally sounds. A junior operative rushes inside. Hale breached the south maintenance levels. Orlan looks almost relieved. Good. The operative hesitates. Good? He was always coming here. That is the first intelligent thing anyone on his side has said in a while. Orlan approaches the machine. We did not accelerate collection because we feared him. He places one hand on the central ring. We accelerated because we needed him desperate. The junior operative says nothing. Orlan smiles. The memory necromancer is not invading our vault. He looks toward the closed door. He is entering the final component. Back above, Corven reaches containment level 2. The next defense is considerably less stupid. No armored wardens, no visible traps, just a woman waiting alone. Director Selka Ven, the woman who denied his combat license 7 times. She stands inside a circular hall lined with sealed corpse cases. Each case bears the name of a famous dead hunter. Selka carries no weapon. That makes her more dangerous. Corven stops 20 paces away. Selka studies him. 3 years ago, she sat behind a ministry desk and told him his class lacked field value. Now neither pretends the conversation was ever administrative. You should have surrendered the fragment. Corven looks around. Then you would have approved my license? Selka almost smiles. No. At least we finally agree. The corpse case is open, all at once. Corven's expression changes slightly. Not bodies, brains. Preserved neural cores suspended in alchemical glass. Mnemonic bait. Selka raises one hand. The room floods with memory signatures. Hundreds. Unorganized. Raw. Designed to overwhelm Corven's class. Smart. Very smart. Falcon appears immediately in the isolation chair. Alira Voss manifests beside her. The council reacts without being called. Corven feels the pressure hit. Childhood memories. Combat deaths. Family names. Last words. Pain. Victory. Terror. Hundreds of lives crash toward him. At Building 49, this almost destroyed him. Not tonight. White Falcon lifts 2 fingers. Severance. The black threaded anchor needle beneath Corvin's collarbone heats violently. One channel becomes 6. Marov organizes incoming signatures. Falcon isolates hostile streams. Alira regulates neurological strain. Cedrin identifies arcane contamination. RX holds Corvin's identity at the center. Bram Ossic's blade appears over the execution chair. Not the man, just the blade. Enough. Corven remains standing. Selka's confidence flickers. Tiny, but real. You built the formation. Part of it. You have no idea what that structure was designed for. Corven takes 1 step forward. I know what you redesigned it for. That hits. The preserved memories intensify. Selka changes tactics. Instead of overwhelming him with volume, she selects individuals, legendary duelists, execution mages, a saint-class healer, a monarch famous for tactical sorcery. She weaponizes quality. The dead surge toward Corven. Our necromancer finally reveals what the inner crown has misunderstood from the beginning. They think memories are ammunition. Corven treats them as people performing functions. That distinction is brutal. He does not absorb the legendary duelist. Marov assigns it. The memory enters the combat channel. He does not absorb the healer. Illyra takes it. The tactical monarch never reaches Corven at all. RX intercepts the pattern. King recognizes King. The mnemonic chamber expands. Stone chairs ignite. 5, then 6. Not complete occupants. Functional positions. The dead begin processing the attack faster than Selka can generate it. Corven walks. 1 pace, then another. The distance closes. Selka finally steps backward. For the first time in 3 years, the woman who defined Corven Hale as useless is forced to reconsider the classification personally. She raises both hands. Every corpse case shatters. The entire hall floods with mnemonic residue. Corven nearly falls. Alira stabilizes. Falcon severs. Marov reorganizes. Cedrin identifies the control sigil. Bram's blade cuts 1 hostile memory stream completely. Oryx opens King's division to its largest scale yet. Not 5 battlefield layers. Dozens. Threat streams separate. Memory categories separate. Arcane structures separate. Selka's control pattern becomes visible. There, a ring beneath her feet. She is not controlling the dead directly. The chamber is. Corven touches the wall. Funeral script expands. Residual intent from every dead memory specialist imprisoned here answers. Hundreds of failed subjects. People who were forced into crowns. People who lost their identities. People the inner crown classified as vessel failures. Their final intent is not complex. Stop. Corven gives it direction. Every memory in the hall turns. Not against Selka physically. Against the control network. The dead reject the machine. Sigils crack. Glass explodes. The containment ring beneath Selka burns out. Her face finally loses composure. No. Corven keeps walking. The same woman who spent years keeping memory necromancers away from powerful corpses now stands surrounded by the very evidence she buried. She reaches for an emergency seal. Too late. Falcon cuts its mnemonic link. Cedrin collapses the activation rune. Marov predicts her escape path. Corven intercepts. Not with a legendary sword technique. With the dead prison guard's nerve strike. Again. Her hand goes numb. The seal drops. Selka stares at him. That trick? It keeps working. A surprisingly fair point. She attacks with her other hand. Corven takes the hit. Hard. His lip splits. Physical weakness remains. Important. He is not untouchable. Selka is stronger than she looks. She drives a knee into his ribs. Corven nearly folds. Then Oryx supplies timing. Marov supplies angle. A deceased duelist temporarily occupies the combat channel. Not full possession. Not personality. Only movement memory. Corven's body reproduces 3 steps. Poorly, but well enough. He turns Selka's shoulder. Uses her momentum. Drives her into the broken containment ring. The hall goes silent. Selka lies against the floor, conscious but unable to rise. Corven does not kill her. Again. Living enemies answer questions. Dead ones answer different questions. He kneels. Selka laughs weakly. You think this is the victory? No. Orlin wants you below. I know. That stops the laughter. Corven pulls a folded sheet from his coat. The original St. Ordell report. The false crematorium trail. The later ministry deployment schedule. Then one more item. A copy of the emergency order Selka signed tonight. He lays them beside her. You moved every anti-necromancy unit east because you believed I would protect the crown. Selka looks at the papers. Corven continues. You believed that because East Vale taught you I would chase it. Her expression changes. The East Vale lead was false. Yes. The St. Ordell record, also false. Now she understands. Not one trap, a chain. Every enemy reaction became evidence for the next stage. Corven stands. You did not corner me here. He looks toward the stairs leading deeper. You cleared my route. That is the moment the trap actually detonates. Selka does not beg. Not yet. But the arrogance is gone. Above them, ministry units at St. Ordel's discover empty vaults, false relic records, forged transport logs, no Corven, no crown, nothing. Confusion spreads. Then the second payoff hits. The merchant network Corven built in Part 4 releases copies of Inner Crown Corpse Transfer manifest to 3 independent guilds. Bennett Vale's notary seal authenticates them. The dead forger's expertise makes the chain impossible to dismiss. The laundry owner delivers a duplicate ledger to a city magistrate. The gate team Corven once helped sends raid death records, proving the ministry seized corpses before families were notified. Ordinary people, ordinary paperwork, massive consequences. The Inner Crown loses secrecy in less than an hour. Corven does not need to destroy the ministry. He makes the ministry explain itself publicly. That is far more expensive. By the time Corven reaches the final staircase, alarm bells across the capital change pattern. Not intruder warning, internal lockdown. Outer divisions are turning against central command. Lysa did her part. Good. Then the 7th chair inside the mnemonic chamber activates. Corven stops mid-step, not fully. A shape appears, small, wrapped in pale robes. No face, no name, the erased specialist. Every existing council member reacts. Oryx stands, Falcon turns. Marov lowers his head slightly. Even Bram Ossic's blade rotates toward the newcomer. The unnamed figure raises one hand. 7 channels connect. For exactly 2 seconds, the mnemonic formation completes. Corven sees everything. The entire ministry structure, the dead memory network beneath it, the original royal vault channels, the 312 stolen signatures, and a vast black concentration far below, the 8th. Not a person. Not anymore. A composite memory mass created by repeated attempts to merge exceptional dead minds. Every failed vessel did not simply die. Parts of them were added. Centuries of fragments. Heroes, criminals, kings, researchers. People stripped of boundaries. One enormous mnemonic organism. The Inner Crown calls it a perfect ruler. The original 7 called it contamination. The unnamed specialist points downward, then vanishes. The council formation breaks. Corven grabs the wall. Blood runs from his nose, but he has what he needs. The 7th function. Detection, not combat, not power. The unnamed specialist could identify which memories inside a composite structure still belong to individual people. That is why their name was erased. If the 8th ever captured their full memory, it could learn to separate itself. Or perhaps resist separation. Either possibility is bad. Corven descends. The final chamber door is already open. Orlan Say waits inside. Behind him, 312 memory streams feed the central mechanism. Black light pulses through the room. The deputy minister wears ceremonial robes instead of ministry gray. A divided crown is embroidered across the chest. No point hiding now. Orlan looks at Corven with genuine admiration. You rebuilt 6 chairs. 7. That gets his attention. For the first time tonight, Orlan's expression changes. Only slightly. You found the nameless function. Part of it. Orlan looks toward the mechanism. Then this is even better than expected. He spreads his arms. Do you finally understand what you are? Corven looks at the machine. Yes, Orlan smiles. The only vessel capable of carrying every great mind that history has produced. No. The smile weakens. Corven touches the anchor needle. I'm the reason they don't have to share one vessel. Silence. That distinction lands harder than any attack. The entire Inner Crown philosophy depends on convergence. One perfect ruler. One composite intelligence. One body containing every heroic advantage. Corven's class proves the opposite. Separation works better. Independent minds. Independent functions. Coordination without erasure. The dead do not need to become one. They can remain many. And still fight together. Orlan's face hardens. Then you have learned nothing from history. Corven looks toward Oryx. The king stands at the center, Falcon beside him, Marov, Elira, Cedrine, Bram's blade, Luth's hands, the nameless silhouette flickering at the edge. No, our necromancer steps into the chamber. I learned from all of it. Orlan activates the machine. Every stolen memory signature ignites. 312 dead heroes flood the room. The pressure is monstrous. Corven's knees almost buckle. The council forms instantly. Not complete, not evolved, but close. 7 channels open. Memories begin sorting. Sword masters into combat analysis. Healers into stabilization. Mages into arcane processing. Commanders into Marov's network. Engineers into Luth's structural map. Executioners and assassins into Bram's termination channel. Unknown contaminated fragments isolate behind Falcon. The sheer scale is ridiculous. For the first time, Corven feels what the final form could become. Not one king, not one hero. A battlefield populated by every useful dead mind available. Orlan sees it too. His confidence finally breaks. Because the 312 memories he collected as fuel have just become Corven's reinforcements. The enemy assembled the army. Corven only needed to give it chairs. The entire deep vault shakes. Far beneath them, the eighth wakes. Not fully. Enough. 1,000 voices whisper through the stone. Orlan turns toward the mechanism. For one terrible second, even he looks uncertain. Good. That means the inner crown does not control it as completely as they claim. Corven lifts the black-threaded anchor needle. The markings across its surface ignite. 7 groups, all active. The council answers. And this time, Aurochs does not place a single piece on the board. He overturns the board entirely. For the first time since Corven Hale touches Aurochs Val's crown, the dead refuse to speak. Not because they are gone, because they are exhausted. The deep ministry vault lies half-collapsed around him. 312 stolen memory signatures have stopped screaming through the machinery. Broken conduits hang from the ceiling. Black pneumonic threads cover the floor like burned veins. Deputy Minister Orlan Say has retreated behind the sealed lower chamber. And somewhere beneath several meters of reinforced royal stone, the eighth is awake enough to listen. So Corven does something wildly uncharacteristic. He leaves. Not permanently. That would be stupid. He simply refuses to fight the final battle with a mnemonic formation held together by blood loss and optimism. Aurochs apparently agrees. The ancient king appears once inside the archive, looks at the 7 damaged chairs, then points toward the exit. Even legendary monarchs understand maintenance. Corven, Lysa Wren, and 2 surviving outer registry agents retreat through an abandoned record tunnel before ministry loyalists can reorganize. Nobody talks much. Lysa's shoulder wound has reopened. Corven's left hand has been trembling for almost 20 minutes. One outer registry agent is carrying half a broken memory conduit because nobody trusts leaving it behind. The entire group looks less like victorious infiltrators and more like people who recently lost an argument with a building. They emerge beneath the laundry cooperative shortly before dawn. The owner, Mara Joss, takes one look at them. She says nothing, just unlocks the cellar, then puts a kettle on upstairs. That tiny decision hits Corven harder than expected. No questions, no panic, no demands for explanation. Only boiling water. Our necromancer sits at the old wooden work table, while Lysa cuts his coat away from a wound near his ribs. You need a healer. I have several. Dead healers. Technically, that distinction is doing a lot of work. Corven almost smiles. Almost. The mnemonic chamber is a disaster. Oryx remains stable at the center. Merov flickers. Cedrin's chair is dark. Alira appears only in short intervals. Falcon is present but translucent. Bram Ossic's blade has cracked along the middle. Luth Marrow exists as 2 hands and nothing else. The nameless function does not appear at all. 7 channels, none reliable. That cannot survive the 8th. Corven places the black-threaded anchor needle on the table. It has changed again. Originally, 1 thread circles the silver shaft. Now 7 separate filaments spiral along it. Every filament carries tiny mnemonic marks, but 3 are fraying. Corven touches the needle. Pain shoots behind his eyes. Alira Voss appears automatically. Good. 1 function still responds to damage. The dead saint raises 1 hand. A memory opens. Not of a battle, not medicine. A workshop. Alira sits beside another healer, repairing a cracked mana vessel. The vessel is not restored by adding more energy. The healer removes pressure from the damaged section first. Corven understands. He has been reinforcing the council by increasing capacity. Wrong approach. The problem is not insufficient power. The problem is that every channel still converges through him before reaching Aurochs. Corven remains the bottleneck. 312 memories nearly proved fatal because every signal still touches his identity layer. He needs independent routing. That requires rebuilding the anchor. Lysa watches him study the needle. What are you seeing? Bad design. You made it, exactly. She hands him a cup of bitter herb tea. Mara has added enough medicinal root to make it taste like wet bark. Corven drinks anyway. Lysa sits across from him. For several minutes, they work without talking. She cleans the black conduit recovered from the vault. Corven separates the mnemonic thread from the silver needle. Tiny movements. No dramatic speeches. No promises about surviving tomorrow. Just tools scratching against wood. A lantern buzzing. Rain beginning outside. The quiet is unexpectedly useful. Corven notices Lysa favoring her injured shoulder. He slides the needle case toward her. She looks at it. Why? Copper hook. Inside the case sits a small surgical tool. Lysa takes it, understands, uses it to pull the torn fastening on her shoulder brace tighter without moving the injured arm. Thank you. Corven keeps working. Return it. There. Emotional intimacy, Corven Hale edition. Painfully efficient. By sunrise, Mara brings food downstairs. Not bread and sentiment. Salted potatoes fried with onion, hard cheese, black tea. Steam fogs the cellar windows. Oil cracks in the pan upstairs. The smell fills the room. Corven eats standing over a schematic. Lysa steals one potato directly from his plate. He moves the plate 2 inches farther away. She takes another. Oryx appears briefly in the archive. The king looks almost offended on Corven's behalf. That might be the most human reaction Oryx has shown so far. Then Corven sees it. 7 food portions on a plate. Separate. Same plate. Not merged. His hand stops. Lysa notices. What? Corven rearranges the potatoes. 7 around one central piece. You just solved something. Possibly. With breakfast. History is humiliating. He pulls the recovered memory conduit toward him. See, the original 7-chair system never sends every memory through Oryx simultaneously. That was Corven's assumption. Instead, each specialist processes a stream locally. Only the result reaches the central anchor. Marov does not send every formation detail to Oryx. He sends the decision. Cedrin does not transmit every rune. He sends the countermeasure. Illyra does not pass every pain signal. She sends the correction. The council needs filters, not merely channels. That is the missing mechanism. Corven dismantles the anchor needle completely. Silver shaft, 7 black filaments. 1 tiny fragment of Oryx's crown. Then he adds something new. 7 mnemonic beads. Each made from condensed residue taken from the corresponding recovered specialist. Not enough to contain them. Enough to recognize them. Lysa watches the assembly. You're making 7 anchors. No. Corven threads the first bead. 1 anchor with 7 local gates. That is much worse. And much better. The first test uses Cedrin Veil. Corven touches an inactive ministry ward containing 17 layered runes. Normally, summoning Cedrin floods Corven with arcane notation. Painful. Dense. Mostly unnecessary. This time, the Cedrin channel opens externally. The Archmage appears inside his own chair. Runes pour toward him. Corven receives almost nothing. For half a second, he thinks the test failed. Then one concept arrives. Third, layer inverted. That is all. Corven checks. Exactly right. No migraine. No foreign childhood memory. No magical theorem written by a dead man 40 years before Corven's birth. Just the useful conclusion. Our Necromancer looks at the anchor. Again. Second test. Illyra. Lysa deliberately cuts her finger. Corven receives no pain, no memory. Only a pulse indicating clotting irregularity. Illyra handles the rest. Third. Marov. Lysa and the outer registry agents rearrange 6 coins on a map while Corven looks away. Marov processes movement. Corven receives 1 instruction. Northern route compromised. Correct. Fourth. Luth Marrow. A cracked support beam. 1 conclusion. Replace lower brace. Fifth. Bram. A hostile memory shard taken from Building 49. Bram does not flood Corven with execution memories. He sends a single classification, contaminated, then severs it. The Council is no longer a collection of memories Corven channels. It is becoming an actual distributed system. That changes the entire scale of what he can do. But there is a problem. Falcon. Her channel refuses the bead. Every time Corven attempts to isolate her function externally, her projection breaks apart. Not weak. Incomplete. Her erased identity prevents the anchor from recognizing her consistently. And without Falcon, the 8th will contaminate every other chair. Corven tries 3 times. Fails 3 times. The 4th attempt nearly erases half a recent memory of his own. He stops immediately. No heroic stupidity. Lysa notices his expression. What did you lose? Nothing important. What? Corven pauses. I forgot where I bought my coat. Lysa stares. That is not reassuring. It was a bad coat. Still, identity erosion is identity erosion. He cannot force Falcon. The memory needs a stronger self-reference. But her entire historical technique involved removing that reference. A paradox. Then Oryx does something unexpected. The king leaves the center chair. That has never happened voluntarily. He walks toward Falcon. The incomplete woman turns. Oryx removes his crown, not the physical crown. The remembered version. He places it on the floor between them. Falcon looks down, then slowly reaches toward it. A memory opens. The night of the original sealing. But this time, Corven sees a moment that was previously missing. Oryx and Falcon stand alone before the others arrive. The king holds the crown. Falcon has already begun erasing her identity. Oryx says 1 sentence. Then let someone else remember you. Falcon answers. Corven cannot hear the name she gives him. The memory deliberately obscures it. But Oryx hears. That is enough. The scene ends. Corven understands. Falcon did not remove herself from every memory. She left one copy. Inside Oryx, he is her anchor, not Corven. That is why her channel keeps failing. Corven has been trying to attach Falcon to the wrong identity. He changes the architecture. Falcon's filament no longer connects to Corven's anchor bead. It connects to Oryx's crown fragment first. Then through him to the council. The result is immediate. Falcon appears. Stable. For the first time, her armor stops flickering. Her face remains indistinct. Her identity remains protected, but her hands are solid. She takes the isolation chair. 6 filters activate. The 7th position remains empty, nameless. The erased specialist, still missing. Corven has partial function data. Detection, differentiating individual identities inside composite memory, but no stable signature. No corpse, no name, no anchor. Lysa leans against the table. Can you fight without the 7th? Yes. She knows him well enough now to wait for the rest. Corven adjusts one filament. Poorly. Better answer. The 8th is built from merged lives. Without the nameless function, Corven can isolate contamination but cannot reliably identify individual memory cores inside the composite. He could attack the mass, he could possibly seal it, but he could not separate the trapped dead people from the organism using them. That matters. Not morally, strategically. Destroying thousands of useful memory signatures because they are tangled together would be incredibly wasteful. RX apparently agrees. Of course he does. This is where Corven's useless necromancy becomes completely absurd. Normal necromancers ask whether a corpse can fight. Corven is preparing to rescue the dead from another dead thing. He needs the 7th chair. The clue comes from Bennett Vale's notary seal. Corven almost overlooks it. The seal sits beside the black evidence tablet. Same place for days. He picks it up while rearranging equipment. The evidence tablet reacts. One line appears. Not 806 signatures. 1. Unregistered signature detected. Corven freezes. The notary seal. Impossible. Bennett was not one of the original specialists. He touches the object. Nothing. Then he remembers. Bennett used the seal for decades. Repeated actions. Repeated identity imprint. Not death memory. Behavioral residue. Corven turns toward Lysa. The nameless erased their recorded identity. Yes, not their habits. She understands slowly. You think the function survived in objects? Not one object. Corven grabs the tablet. Patterns. The nameless specialist could identify individuals inside composite memory. A person capable of that may have distributed their own identity instead of preserving it centrally. Not one corpse. Not one relic. A pattern scattered across many objects. Oryx reacts. The 7th chair flickers. Corven is right. He cannot reconstruct the specialist tonight, but he can prepare the receiver. He alters the final filament. No identity bead. Instead, an empty loop. A channel designed to collect matching behavioral fragments during the final confrontation. A trap for a person who erased themselves. Elegant. Extremely dangerous. Perfect. The anchor is complete by evening. Silver core. 7 mnemonic gates. Oryx's crown fragment at center. Falcon routed through the king. The nameless channel open. Every other specialist filtered independently. Corven inserts the needle beneath his collarbone. No pain surge. No flood of voices. Instead, 7 quiet presences unfold behind his thoughts. Rx. Mirov. Elita. Cedrin. Luth. Bram. Falcon. The final chair waits. Corven enters the mnemonic chamber. They are all there. Not completely evolved. Not yet. But stable. Mirov adjusts the table. Cedrin inspects the doors. Alira stands behind Corven rather than inside her chair. Luth traces the ministry foundations. Bram holds his own blade now. Falcon remains beside Rx. No one waits for Corven to summon them individually. That is new. Then Mirov places 7 pieces around the table. Everyone moves at once. A rehearsal. The council is practicing without him. Companion evolution is no longer approaching. It is assembling itself. Across the capital, Orlan Say is preparing too. Deep beneath the ministry, the inner crown seals every surviving access tunnel. Director Selka Van has been recovered from the upper containment hall. Her left arm is bound. Her pride is in considerably worse condition. Orlan stands beside the central mechanism while engineers attach fresh conduits to the 8th's vault. He does not punish Selka. That would waste time. Instead, he gives one order. Open the heroic reserve. Selka looks toward the sealed lower gate. That reserve has never been processed. It does not need to be. There are memory signatures inside that collection we cannot identify. Orlan turns. That is exactly why Hale will come. Behind him, enormous vault doors begin opening. Thousands of preserved mnemonic records ignite in the darkness. Not 312, thousands. The inner crown is no longer trying to overwhelm Corven. They are preparing bait large enough that his class cannot ignore it. Orlan watches the black light spread through the chamber. He wants every hero who ever lived. His smile returns. Give them to him. Back beneath the laundry, Corven closes the equipment case. Mara has gone upstairs to prepare the shop for morning. Lysa tightens the strap across her injured shoulder. No speeches, no dramatic farewells. She hands Corven the copper surgical hook from earlier. He looks at it. You were supposed to return that. I am. He puts it back in the case. Fair enough. Corven checks the anchor needle one final time. Every filament holds. He tests funeral script. Stable. King's Division. Distributed. Falcon Severance. Externally routed. The unnamed detection channel. Open. Then he adds the final refinement. The skill he first uses in East Vale. The principle that allows multiple memories to overlap his body. Back then, 4 dead people nearly tear his identity apart. Now Corven changes the mechanism entirely. No overlapping personalities, only assigned outputs. The prison guard controls close-range reaction. The scout handles spatial tracking. The magician handles fine timing. Oryx does not control any physical movement. He coordinates decisions. Corven names the formation memory array. One body, many specialists, no identity merger. When the channels synchronize, our Necromancer takes 3 steps across the cellar. Nothing spectacular happens. That is the terrifying part. Every movement is simply correct. Foot lands outside a damaged floorboard. Hand catches a falling metal tool without looking. Shoulder turns just enough to protect the wound. Eyes track Lysa's reflection in the window while watching the door. No wasted motion. No possession. No visible spell. Just accumulated human mastery routed through one living operator. Corven stops. Oryx watches. Marov nods. Falcon's hand rests near her blade. The council is ready enough. Not perfect. Enough. Corven pulls on his coat. Same one. Repaired twice. Still bad. He fastens the evidence tablet to the inside lining, places Bennett Vale's seal in a separate pocket, clips the reconstructed anchor case to his belt. Then he takes the original Ministry combat license denial. Lysa raises an eyebrow. You're bringing paperwork? Corven folds it once. Historical significance. That actually gets a laugh. Small. Tired. Real. Then every mana lamp in the cellar flickers. The black evidence tablet activates by itself. One message appears. Not generated by the Ministry. Not generated by Corven's class. Mnemonic reserve breach detected. Unregistered signatures exceeding measurable threshold. Oryx rises inside the archive. Falcon turns toward the white door. The nameless chair pulses. Once, then again. Corven feels thousands of distant dead memories coming online beneath the city. Heroes, kings, mages, hunters, people preserved for centuries. The 8th is preparing to swallow them. Our Necromancer closes the equipment case. Mara's front bell rings upstairs as the first morning customer enters the laundry. Normal life continues directly above a war over the memory of history. Corven climbs the cellar steps. At the door, he pauses long enough to tighten the anchor needle beneath his collarbone. 7 channels answer. 1 remains empty. Waiting. He opens the door. And this time, every dead legend inside his head walks out with him. The strongest necromancer in the capital enters the final battlefield carrying no corpse, no summoned beast, no bone armor, not even a proper weapon. Corven Hale walks through the lower ministry gate wearing a repaired coat, a silver needle beneath his collarbone, and enough dead expertise behind his eyes to overthrow several civilizations before lunch. The inner crown is waiting. Every corridor beneath the ministry has been stripped bare. No clerks, no archives, no ordinary wardens, only containment barriers and black pneumonic conduits descending toward the original royal vault. Orlance has turned the entire underground complex into one enormous feeding mechanism. Corven can feel it before reaching the chamber. Thousands of memory signatures, some sharp, some fragmented, some centuries old, every one of them flowing toward the 8th. The nameless chair inside the council pulses with each step, still empty, still listening. Lysa walks 6 paces behind him with 2 outer registry agents. Corven stops at the final junction. Stay here. Lysa immediately dislikes that. No. The next chamber is built around pneumonic contamination. So, you have 1 brain. And you have how many? Corven considers that. Currently disputed. Not helpful. Lysa folds her arms. He continues. The 8th can use nearby identities as entry points. If it reaches you, Falcon has to protect another living mind. And that weakens you. Yes. Lysa does not argue after that. Good. She removes a narrow black blade from her belt and hands it to him. Corven looks at it. I don't use swords. Then return it. Apparently, this relationship has developed a theme. He takes the blade, not for combat. Tools have other functions. Then our necromancer enters alone. The final vault is enormous. 8 concentric platforms descend toward a black pit in the center. Thousands of suspended memory vessels surround the chamber. Crystal cylinders, relic fragments, preserved neural cores, battlefield remains, burial tokens, personal artifacts, anything capable of retaining a deceased imprint. History hangs from the ceiling, and every piece is connected by black threads. At the far end stands Orlan Say. Director Corven waits beside him. Her arm is still bound from their last encounter. Apparently, humiliation heals slower than bone. Between them rests the 8th coffin, open. Not fully, 3 inches, more than enough. Black light pours through the gap. Thousands of voices overlap. Corvin's anchor immediately heats. Falcon appears. Marov follows. Illyra. Cedrin. Luth. Bram. Oryx rises last. 6 chairs, 1 center. 1 empty. The memory array activates. Orlan spreads his arms. You came. Corven looks around. You stole half the historical dead in the capital. An incentive. Wasteful. Selka's expression tightens. Orlan laughs. You still think like an archivist. No. Corven looks at the coffin. I think like a necromancer. The distinction is about to become extremely expensive. Orlan raises one hand. The chamber awakens. Stage 1 begins immediately. No warning, no dramatic duel. Every stored memory signature detonates toward Corven at once. The force does not touch his body. His body reacts anyway. Knees buckle. Vision doubles. Foreign lives slam against his identity. A cavalry officer remembers losing both legs. A saint remembers burning alive. A hunter remembers being eaten inside a gate. A child emperor remembers ordering an execution. A healer remembers failing to save her daughter. A murderer remembers enjoying his work. Thousands. Corven drops one hand against the floor. The anchor needle screams with heat. Falcon cuts contamination channels. Illyra stabilizes his nervous system. Marov sorts the incoming streams. Cedrin identifies embedded compulsions. Bram severs hostile memory hooks. Luth begins mapping the machine. Oryx holds Corven's name at the center. Corven Hale. Memory necromancer. Living. Present. Separate. The words are not spoken. They are structural. Without them, he disappears. Orlan watches from above. You cannot filter history forever. Probably true. Corven spits blood onto the stone. Don't need forever. Orlan gestures again. The second assault comes physically. 2 military necromancers emerge from side platforms. These are not ordinary corpse mages. Each wears reinforced spinal armor constructed from legendary beast remains. One raises 6 skeletal warhounds. The other summons an armored giant from a preserved dungeon corpse. So yes, Corven finally gets the classic necromancer experience. Unfortunately, all the undead belong to someone else. The first warhound hits him before memory array finishes adjusting. Claws tear across his back. Corven crashes against a conduit. The second hound bites his sleeve and throws him across the platform. A skeletal fist descends. He barely rolls. Stone explodes. His ribs scream. Stage 1 remains absolutely miserable. Good. It should. If the council removes physical limitations completely, then Corven has stopped being human somewhere along the way. He does not want that. He wants efficiency. Stage 2 begins. Read. Marov tracks the hounds. Luth maps platform stress. Cedrin studies corpse control frequencies. Oryx watches Orlan. Falcon watches the 8th. That last division matters most. Corven does not attack. He keeps retreating. One hound clips his leg. The armored giant tears a conduit from the wall and swings it like a club. Corven ducks. The conduit smashes through the floor. Luth immediately sends one conclusion. Load redistribution unstable. Corven smiles. There. The physical battlefield is connected to the mnemonic network. Damage one correctly, and the other shifts. Cedrin sends another conclusion. Corpse controls share carrier frequency. Even better, the Inner Crown built every system to coordinate from one central command architecture. Exactly the philosophy Corven has spent the entire story proving wrong. One ruler, one network. One point of failure. Orlan still does not understand. He thinks centralization is strength. Corven has 7 dead specialists preparing to disagree. The hounds attack again. King's division expands. Not 5 layers, dozens. Marov processes movement. Cedrin handles magic. Luth handles structure. Illyra handles injury. Falcon isolates foreign memory. Bram handles hostile links. Oryx sends only decisions. Corven receives almost no raw data now, just answers. Left. Duck. 3 steps. Cut line 4. Wait. Now. Our necromancer moves. The same dead prison guard controls close reaction. The scout manages spatial positioning. The street magician manages timing. No possession, no merged identity, assigned outputs. The memory array from Part 8 finally works under combat conditions. A warhound lunges, Corven pivots. Its jaw closes on empty air. He draws Lysa's black blade, not to stab the beast. He cuts a conduit, black light erupts. Cedrin catches the backlash, routes it into the shared control frequency. Every skeletal hound jerks sideways. The military necromancer curses. Corven cuts the second conduit. Luth had already calculated the load shift. The platform beneath the armored giant drops 6 inches. Its weight changes, tiny difference, enough. The giant swings early, crushes 2 hounds. Corven passes beneath its arm. Funeral script ignites beneath his feet. The same technique first used against Dane, foreshadowed in East Vale. Scaled through the ministry corridors, now completed. But Corven no longer commands residual intent as one chaotic mass. Marov organizes it. Cedrin stabilizes it. Falcon isolates contamination. Oryx coordinates. Every dead person who ever resisted the inner crown inside this vault leaves behind intent. Hundreds of failed vessels, executed researchers, memory specialists, test subjects. Their final actions return. Not bodies, not ghosts. Patterns. Hands reaching for switches. Researchers trying to close valves. Prisoners pulling restraints. Subjects tearing crowns from their heads. Thousands of remembered actions appear across the machine. The vault starts operating itself backward. Orlan's expression finally changes. Stop him! The military necromancers reinforce their summons. Too late. Stage 3. Ignition. Corven raises one hand. Funeral script expands across all 8 platforms. The entire chamber becomes a battlefield populated by actions of the dead. Not one memory, thousands. But unlike the 8th, they do not merge. Each remains separate. Each performs one remembered function. Every hero, every failure, every forgotten victim. They move through Corven's network without becoming Corven. That is the breakthrough. His next enemy does not face one necromancer. They face everyone who left something useful behind. The first military necromancer loses control. A dead containment engineer's memory closes his beast channel. The second tries switching frequencies. Cedrin predicts it. A deceased rune researcher counters him. The armored giant charges Corven. A dead hunter remembers fighting the same species. One conclusion reaches Marov. Marov sends it to Corven, joint behind left knee. Our guy steps inside the giant's reach. The dead duelist supplies angle. The prison guard supplies timing. Lysa's black blade slices through an exposed control thread. The giant collapses, not destroyed, disconnected. The necromancer controlling it stares. Corven turns. Your summon is fine. Then he points toward the black threads. Your system isn't. The floor erupts. Orlan activates the 8th directly. Every light dies. The coffin lid opens another foot. The voices stop being voices. They become presence. Something enormous enters the chamber. Not physically. Mnemonic pressure. The 8th reaches for everything at once. Memories begin peeling away from storage vessels. The council destabilizes. Marov flickers. Alira drops to one knee. Cedrin's chair cracks. Bram loses half his body. Falcon raises both hands and holds the contamination wall. Barely. Oryx turns toward the coffin. For the first time, Corven feels genuine fear from him. Not Corven's fear. Oryx's. The ancient king remembers this thing. Remembers nearly losing. Orlan steps into the black light. His ceremonial robes burn away. Underneath, mnemonic sigils cover his entire body. He has prepared himself as a vessel. Of course. He was never planning to put the 8th inside Corven. He intends to absorb it himself first. Corven is only the stabilizer. Orlan spreads his arms. History requires a will strong enough to unify it. The 8th pours into him. His body convulses. Eyes turn black. Then gold. Then blue. Dozens of voices escape his mouth. A king. A woman. A child. An old soldier. A priest. Orlan's posture changes every second. Then stabilizes. Too fast. Impossible. Selka steps backward. Even she did not expect this. Orlan looks at Corven. Except it is no longer entirely Orlan. Magic bursts outward. Oryx recognizes one technique. Cedrin recognizes 3. Corven recognizes none personally. The first spell tears through 6 platforms. He gets hit by the edge. Everything goes white. His body crashes near the central pit. Anchor needle fractures. One silver shard breaks loose. Bad. Very bad. The council loses synchronization. Orlan walks toward him. Every step carries another dead person's technique. Flame. Gravity. Barrier magic. Sword intent without a sword. Healing that repairs his own damaged tissues mid-motion. The perfect ruler. Exactly what the inner crown wanted. And completely unstable. Corven sees it. Stage 2 never ended. Orlan is powerful. Absurdly powerful. But every technique produces tiny hesitation afterward. Different memories are contesting execution priority. One mind wants to pursue, another wants defense, another tries healing. Another tries changing terrain. Powerful, not coordinated. Merged. Corven smiles through blood. Orlan notices. What is funny? You. Dozens of expressions pass across Orlan's face. Corven pushes himself upright. You finally built it. The memory array flickers. Oryx still stands. Falcon still holds. Marov appears without one arm. Illyra is barely visible. The nameless chair pulses violently. Corven looks at Orlan. Not one person. Thousands. Merged. That is exactly the pattern the seventh function exists to read. The empty chair activates. Bennett Vale's notary seal burns inside Corven's coat. Then other objects respond. The evidence tablet. The tower-marked page. The crown fragment. Records. Habits. Patterns. Tiny traces accumulated across the entire story. The nameless specialist did not preserve an identity. They preserved a method across systems. A way of recognizing individuality through repetition. The seventh figure forms. No face. No name, but stable. They sit. The council becomes complete. The entire mnemonic chamber changes. 7 chairs lock around RX. Memory doors vanish. Walls vanish. The archive becomes an enormous black expanse filled with points of light. Every point is a person. Separate. Visible. The nameless function raises one hand. Orlan's composite structure appears. Thousands of tangled lights. For the first time, Corven can see where one dead identity ends and another begins. There it is. The weakness. The eighth is not one mind. It never was. It is thousands of imprisoned boundaries crushed together. Corven does not need to destroy it. He needs to separate it. Falcon understands immediately. Severance. Nameless identifies. Marov coordinates. Cedrin interprets links. Bram cuts hostile bonds. Illyra protects damaged identities. Luth models the collapsing network. Oryx anchors the entire formation. Companion evolution completes. Not Oryx. Not one dead king. The Council of Remnants. 7 specialists and 1 central anchor, functioning independently inside Corven's necromancy. Our guy does not summon them anymore. They deploy themselves. Orlan attacks. Corven steps forward. 1 spell, avoided. 2nd, redirected. 3rd, Cedrin dismantles its mnemonic pattern before full casting. Orlan tries sword memory. Marov predicts. Corven uses the dead duelist's footwork. He gets cut anyway. Shoulder, deep, but close enough. Corven reaches Orlan. 2 fingers touch his forehead. Living target, normally useless. Not now. Because Orlan is carrying the dead. Thousands of them. Corven's class erupts. Mnemonic network accessible. Foreign identity boundaries detected. Collective extraction impossible. Selective invocation available. Exactly. Corven smiles. No. Orlan's many voices scream. Corven activates Falcon Severance through the completed memory array. Not one cut. Thousands. The nameless function identifies each boundary. Falcon separates. Bram severs enforced links. Illyra stabilizes liberated fragments. Marov roots them. RX holds the center. The 8th begins coming apart, not exploding. Unbraiding. Heroes emerge from tyrants, children from kings, mages from soldiers, researchers from executioners. Every stolen identity tears free from the composite. Orlan falls backward. His impossible magic collapses technique by technique. Healing disappears. Gravity disappears. Flame disappears. Sword intent disappears. Every hero he stole leaves him. The black coffin screams. Corven keeps the formation active. Blood runs from his nose. Eyes. Ears. His body is reaching the edge, Illyra warns. Marov says continue. Falcon says nothing. Oryx looks directly at Corven. Our necromancer understands. One more step. The original core remains inside the coffin, not thousands. 1. A tiny memory signature hidden beneath centuries of accumulation. The first. The entity from which the 8th began. Nameless identifies it. Corven expects a monster. A tyrant. Some ancient forbidden mage. Instead, the signature belongs to a child. No name, no title, no combat memory. A child placed inside the first mnemonic transfer experiment centuries ago. Used because a young mind was believed to be empty enough to accept others. Every later memory accumulated around that first destroyed identity. That is the origin, not evil. Contamination. Corven recalculates instantly. Do not destroy. Isolate. Falcon moves. The child's memory separates from the rest. The black coffin finally stops screaming. Silence. Orlan lies on the floor. Ordinary again. Weak. Terrified. He looks toward the dead machine. No. Corven can barely stand. Orlan crawls toward the coffin. You ruined centuries of work. Corven looks down at him. Correct. All that knowledge still exists. Orlan freezes. Behind Corven, thousands of memory lights remain suspended, separate, stable, not lost. That is the final humiliation. The Inner Crown spent centuries merging greatness because they believed separation meant weakness. Corven has just preserved every memory they collected without sacrificing a single identity to the composite. The dead remain themselves, and they are still usable. Orlan looks at the lights, then at Corven. What are you going to do with them? Our necromancer glances toward the council. Oryx stands at center. White Falcon beside him, the others stable. The nameless specialist remains faceless, but present. Corven closes his hand. The liberated memories flow into separate archive channels. Not absorbed, stored, indexed, protected, an arsenal with boundaries. Ask them. Orlan does not understand. That is probably appropriate. Behind him, Selka quietly reaches for a broken control seal. Bram turns before Corven notices. The executioner points. Corven follows. Selka stops. Too late to pretend. Lysa enters from the upper platform with her blade drawn. Apparently staying behind lasted approximately 8 minutes. Corven looks at her. You were told to wait. You were told to return that knife. Fair. The deep vault begins collapsing. Luth immediately maps the safe route. Marov organizes retreat. Alira suppresses Corven's internal bleeding enough to keep him walking. Falcon isolates the surviving child memory inside a white chamber. Oryx remains beside it. For the first time, the ancient king removes his remembered crown and places it on the floor. No prison needed anymore. The eighth is gone, not killed, separated. The system behind Corven's eyes finally settles. Mnemonic formation stabilized. Independent council architecture established. Archive capacity expanded beyond measurable threshold. No undead capacity acquired. Corven actually laughs. Of course, after all that, he still cannot summon a skeleton. Perfect. He turns toward the exit while thousands of preserved heroic memories organize themselves behind him. The dead duelist, the scout, the magician, the physician, the engineers, kings, hunters, saints, criminals, ordinary workers, heroes nobody remembers. None of them become Corven Hale. That is the point. They do not need to. One living necromancer walks out of the collapsing vault. Every dead expert who chooses to answer walks with him. By noon, the Ministry of Gates has 3 different explanations for why half its underground headquarters collapsed. None of them are correct. The official statement blames an unstable historical relic. The emergency committee blames unauthorized necromantic research. One extremely optimistic clerk writes, localized infrastructure failure on the first damage report. Corven Hale reads that last version from a hospital bed and decides bureaucracy may actually be the hardest form of immortality. His left shoulder is wrapped. 3 ribs are reinforced with healing bands. The anchor wound beneath his collarbone has been stitched shut. And according to the physician standing beside him, he should remain under observation for at least 4 days. According to 6 dead physicians inside the council, 3 days would probably be enough. According to Alira Voss, who currently occupies the medical chair and keeps sending unpleasant warnings every time Corven sits up too. Quickly, all 7 of them are idiots. Our necromancer stays in bed. Mostly, the city outside does not. The evidence released during the ministry breach spreads faster than any official containment order can suppress it. Corpse transfer manifests reach the independent guilds. Families discover bodies they were told had been destroyed were actually relocated into Inner Crown facilities. Dungeon teams identify fallen hunters inside seized mnemonic inventories. Merchant houses recognize forged transport chains. Judges receive authenticated ledgers carrying Bennett Vale's notary seal. The scandal is no longer secret enough to kill quietly. That matters more than destroying one vault. The Inner Crown survives for centuries because nobody knows which deaths belong to it. Corven changes that. Once ordinary people can point at individual bodies, individual signatures, and individual officials, ancient conspiracies become painfully modern criminal cases. Deputy Minister Orlan Say is arrested before sunset. He does not receive a dramatic execution. Corven considers that inefficient anyway. Instead, Orlan wakes inside a ministry isolation chamber stripped of every mnemonic enhancement he spent his life collecting. No borrowed kings, no copied saints, no voices reinforcing his authority. Just Orlan, one man, one mind. One extremely long list of charges. For someone who built his entire philosophy around becoming more than one person, the punishment is almost embarrassingly specific. Director Selka Ven receives something different. Her records are made public. Not all of them. Only the licensing decisions. 3 decades of rejected memory-sensitive necromancers. Researchers denied corpse access. Awakened children redirected into safe utility professions. Field applications blocked without explanation. Corven's 7 rejected combat licenses sit near the top. Selka once controlled which people were allowed to discover what their own classes could become. Now every decision carries her name. She loses her directorship before the second inquiry begins. Then independent investigators reopen every case she buried. Turns out paperwork can summon the dead too. Dane Rook survives long enough to testify. That is fortunate for him. Less fortunate for everyone he names. The former curator trades information for a reduced sentence, exposing mortuary brokers, relic smugglers, and 3 families that supplied preserved remains to the inner crown. Corven never visits him. No need. Dane already understands which side of the locked gate he ended up on. The severed throne itself fractures. The inner crown loses its ministry protection. The outer registry comes into public view for the first time. Not completely. Lysa makes sure of that. She provides enough records to prove that a preservation faction existed inside the organization and opposed reopening the 8th. She does not provide every name. Corven notices. Of course he notices. He lets it happen. For now, destroying every archivist who spent generations preventing the inner crown from succeeding would be strategically stupid. Trusting them completely would be even worse. So the outer registry receives a temporary legal arrangement. All remaining mnemonic artifacts are placed under joint oversight. Independent guild representatives, civil magistrates, 2 academic historians, 1 necromancer. Guess which one? Corven officially becomes director of mnemonic custody. He hates the title immediately. Mara Joss puts it on a sign anyway. Not inside the ministry. Outside Hale post-mortem analysis. Director Hale appointments upstairs. Corven stares at it for nearly 10 seconds. Mara keeps folding laundry. You're famous now. Remove it. No. It attracts attention. That is what signs do. Lysa, sitting near the window with her shoulder still strapped, hides a smile behind a cup of tea. Corven looks toward Oryx for support. The ancient king deliberately turns away. Betrayal everywhere. Hale post-mortem analysis reopens 6 days after the vault collapse. The front room looks exactly the same. Cheap desk. 2 chairs. A ledger. A kettle that whistles too aggressively. The basement does not. 7 mnemonic stations now form a clean circle beneath the floor. No corpses remain permanently stored there. Corven refuses to turn the place into another Building 49. Instead, each station connects to a protected archive channel. Memories remain separated, identified where possible, restricted where necessary. The liberated signatures from the 8th are not treated as property. That becomes Corven's first official policy. A dead person's memory can be consulted, invoked, studied. In emergency circumstances, temporarily routed through the council, but never merged against its own preserved structure. The ministry lawyers spend 3 days arguing about whether a memory can possess legal identity after death. Corven gives them 8,000 historical cases to review. The argument becomes much quieter. The council changes too. Oryx no longer spends every session standing at the center. Sometimes Marov takes coordination automatically. Sometimes Elira suppresses access because Corven is physically exhausted. Cedrin has developed an irritating tendency to open arcane memories before Corven finishes asking. Bram Ossick rarely appears unless something needs cutting. Luth Marrow reorganizes structural archives constantly. Falcon remains close to Oryx, always. Her face never fully returns. Her name remains hidden. The nameless specialist is even stranger. No body. No recorded identity. No stable appearance. But the function now manifests whenever Corven works with composite mnemonic structures. The council does not feel like a collection of abilities anymore. It feels like a room occupied by very opinionated dead professionals, which is technically progress. Corven still cannot summon bones. He tests once, purely for scientific completeness. A cleaned skeleton rests on a certified training platform. Corven raises one hand. Nothing happens. He tries standard corpse command syntax. Nothing. Cedrin watches. Bram watches. Marov looks almost insulted. Oryx folds his arms. Corven lowers his hand. Worth checking. Falcon turns away. Even the dead are judging him now. His combat classification changes anyway. The ministry initially proposes strategic necromancer, crown tier. Corven rejects it. Too much attention. They propose mnemonic sovereign. He rejects that faster. Absolutely not. Eventually, the official registry settles on memory necromancer, unrestricted field authorization. Same class. Different understanding. That feels appropriate. 3 years after the first rejection, Corven receives a new license. No provisional utility marker. No sponsorship requirement. No restriction on active gates. Lysa hands him the card herself. Corven looks at it, then removes the old denial notice from his coat. Still folded. Still stained from the vault. Lysa raises an eyebrow. You kept that? Historical significance. You said that before. It became true. He places the denial and the new license beside each other on his desk. No speech, no celebration. He simply opens the next client file. That is Corven Hale. Recognition is useful. Work remains. The first major request comes from a hunter guild. A raid team enters an old northern gate and never returns. No bodies recovered. Only one damaged helmet comes back through the closing portal. Before all this, Corven could do nothing with it. No corpse. No deceased neural imprint. Now the council has learned something from the 8th. Memories do not always live inside flesh. Repeated intent can stain objects. The nameless function already proved that. Corven touches the helmet. Faint fragments answer. Fear. Running. Someone shouting coordinates. A creature with too many eyes. Then one sharp image of a hunter pushing the others toward an exit while staying behind. Not enough to reconstruct a person. Enough to identify intent. Corven removes his hand. The guild representative looks nervous. Can you find them? Possibly. Not a heroic promise. Not certainty. Possibly. The man nods anyway. That answer carries more weight now. Corven accepts the case. The guild leaves. Mara brings another stack of appointments slips downstairs. There are 11. A noble inheritance dispute. A suspicious battlefield death. 2 failed dungeon raids. A historian requesting access to Oryx-era records. One family asking whether the final memory of their daughter can be recovered from a burned pendant. The world has finally discovered what memory necromancy is good for. Not commanding dead bodies. Preserving what death normally erases. Sometimes that means solving murders, sometimes finding weaknesses, sometimes recovering forgotten techniques, sometimes allowing a family to know what happened. And sometimes it means putting 7 legendary specialists into a formation capable of dismantling an artificial god. Versatile profession. Meanwhile, the surviving heroic memories from the 8th receive permanent protected channels. Corven does not absorb them all. That would recreate the same mistake in a different shape. Instead, he catalogs access conditions. A legendary swordsman remains dormant until relevant combat data appears. An extinct plague scholar stays sealed behind Alira's medical authority. A siege mage requires Cedron's approval. Several violent rulers are restricted by Bram and Falcon simultaneously. Even Oryx gets limits. The king dislikes that. Corven does not care. Useful things require surveillance. Kings included. Weeks pass. The capital stabilizes. The deep ministry vault is sealed under independent oversight. The 8th coffin is dismantled. The black mnemonic network is separated into inert pieces. The child memory discovered at its original center receives its own white chamber. No experiments, no access requests, no weaponization, just preservation. Oryx visits that chamber sometimes. He never speaks there. Corven does not interrupt. One evening, Lysa finds him rebuilding the original stone table map inside the council archive. Most of the black pieces are gone. Inner crown cells inside the capital have been identified. Building 49 is under guard. St. Ordel's restricted crypts are catalogued. The ministry deep vault is closed. 7 old facilities connected to Severed Throne research have been crossed out. One mark remains, not a divided crown. The white tower with 8 vertical sections. The same symbol Lysa once left on a blank tax page. Corven looks at her. You said the outer registry used this symbol. Not exactly. Interesting answer. Lysa sits across from him. The registry found it. Where? In records older than the Severed Throne. There it is, the unresolved piece. Corven does not react dramatically. He turns the map around. Explain. Lysa places one finger on the tower. The original mnemonic formation did not begin beneath the royal palace. Oryx appears instantly. Falcon follows. Neither looks pleased. Lysa notices only Corven's expression. She continues. The palace vault was a copy. That changes the board again. Not today, but completely. Corven closes the map. Location? We only have one reference. She removes a narrow strip of preserved parchment from her coat. A mountain range is drawn across it, north of the Dominion, beyond the old gate frontier. At the center stands the same 8-section tower. No name, just one annotation written in a dead imperial script. Cedron begins translating automatically. Oryx interrupts him. The king places one hand over the result. Corven watches. That reaction matters. He does not force the memory open. He has learned that lesson. The parchment goes into a sealed evidence sleeve. First future problem. Not ignored, not solved, filed. 2 days later, a second seed arrives. A courier from the western provinces walks into Hale postmortem analysis carrying a wooden box. No secret cloak, no mysterious voice, just a terrified 19-year-old postal runner with a legitimate delivery receipt. The box was sent from the ruins of Fort Rune, a battlefield abandoned for more than 2 centuries. Inside sits a broken bronze medal. Corven recognizes the insignia, White Falcon, not the symbol of her technique. Her military insignia. A note accompanies it, recovered from a sealed room beneath the western wall. One body found, no name in any record. Falcon materializes inside the council before Corven touches the medal. Fully. For one instant, even her face almost resolves. Then she reaches toward Oryx. The ancient king does not stop her. Second future problem, very personal to the dead. Corven closes the box instead of opening the memory immediately. Some doors deserve preparation. Then comes the third. A week later, Corven finishes marking the northern tower location on a fresh map. He does not stare into the distance. He does not make a speech. He packs. Medical supplies. Blank memory beads. The repaired anchor needle. Lysa's black blade, finally returned and then immediately borrowed again. The Northern Hunter Guild request goes into the same case. 2 routes overlap for nearly half the journey. Efficient. Mara watches him close the office ledger. You're leaving? For several weeks. Should I take appointments? Yes. How many? Corven considers the stack already waiting. All of them. Mara nods like that was obvious. Lysa arrives downstairs carrying cold weather gear. Apparently she has invited herself. Corven does not waste time objecting. Inside the mnemonic chamber, Merov unfolds the northern map. Cedrin studies the dead script around the tower. Falcon keeps one hand near the bronze medal. The nameless function appears beside the final blank route. Oryx stands at the center, not as a prison, not as a king commanding subjects. Just the first dead man who taught Corven that memories can do more than replay. Corven fastens the field license to the inside of his coat. The old rejection stays in the desk. It has already served its purpose. Hale post-mortem analysis remains open beneath the capital, and the only necromancer in the Dominion who still cannot raise a single skeleton now has more dead heroes answering his calls than the Ministry can count. On the northern map, beyond the old gate frontier, the 8-section tower is finally marked with a destination, and this time, Corven is going there because he chose to.